No.
Oh, excuse me. All right, welcome everyone to the October 23rd school board meeting. We were in non-public. While in non-public, we discussed personnel matters. All righty, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so agenda review, public comments. Okay, so I'm gonna open up public comments at 7:05 and keep it open to 7:35. There's no public here right now. Agenda review, we did have a policy, wanted to send that one policy for a couple of tweaks.
Yeah, I wanted to do BHE.
BHE back, and then we'll bring it back at our next meeting.
Yes, but the rest will stay.
All right. Is there anything else for agenda review?
Yes, under other, I have 3 items.
Okay,
They're all brief, I promise.
okay. You want to tell us?
One's about an intern working in IT. Another one is a facility use that came last minute that is dated before our next meeting. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out about the tax rate being set.
Okay. Great. Shout out.
It's worthy of a shout out.
All righty. So people feel like the tax rate. They want to shout out.
Shout out that it's done, people. It's not December, is it?
Okay. All righty. So, all right, action items. We have approval of the school board minutes, 10/9/24, both non-public and public. Do we have a motion?
I move we accept the public and non-public meeting minutes of the October 9th, 2024 school board meetings.
Do we have a second? Second. Discussion. Nice job getting the numbers on the lines. Good job. Good job. I have one correction on page 2, line 61. It was, I asked about the budget for the new, just insert the one math curriculum there. And what the discussion was for the new structure and reason, it's the KIDDER, it's KIDDER, isn't it?
It is.
KIDDER Law Conference. And what that was, we discussed, I'm trying to read my writing here, hold on 1 second. New regulations involving changes of curriculum requirements, changes in curriculum requirements. That's what we discussed at the KIDDER Law Conference. Anybody else have anything? I have one other one. Let me just see. Page 7.
Okay, so at the bottom,
Yeah.
page 16 at the top for everybody.
Okay, so basically, if we're going to do, and this is, this is just something to get used to. If we're going to talk about a discussion, either we summarize it or we give the whole discussion. So on 199, Mr. Scouten suggested about the suspension. So and the board can weigh in on this. We can either keep that like that and add the rest of the discussion, which would be that I then explained that the dean wanted discretion to, gosh, I gotta say this. Wanted discretion to be contingent upon the infractions or what the concern was.
I believe that is accurate.
Yeah, or we can just say discussion ensued regarding suspension and justification for the language change was given. So I'm just trying to teach, it's like if we either give like the whole discussion or we sort of summarize. So.
I'm fine with either way. I'm fine with adding in your comments
Yeah.
or.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, you're
Sure.
We generally go a little more detailed, so
Okay.
I'm fine with
The
that.
second one?
Yeah.
All right, so then if we keep what Kyle said, then you'd say Ms. Hinrichsen clarified that the dean would like discretion contingent upon the infraction. So he would have that authority to make those decisions. All right. Do The other thing is, when we do, and this is all new, when we have an abstaining person, they're not included in the vote. So if it passes, it's 4-0, and then 1 abstention, because you didn't vote against it. So
Oh,
we're
I didn't catch that.
so
That's
we're-
my bad. I
So
should-
wherever we have, and this is new, this is, if you don't know about this, it's all new.
Sorry
So
about that.
whenever you have an abstention, that person isn't counted.
Yeah.
So it would have been, the board voted 4-0.
I think that was the most wild voting session we'd ever had.
Yes, it was. So I think that was it. I don't know, did anybody else say anything?
I knew that one, I just didn't catch it. So.
And this is all just, everybody, it's all learning, everything's learning. All right, anybody else see anything? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so, Katrina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
And Debbie, yes. All right, good. All right, so now we have the superintendent's report. Manifest is circulating, is it?
It's already been handed out.
Oh, it's already been done.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anybody have any questions about the manifest? All done? All right, so now we have our budget presentation.
So if you're okay with it, I'd like to use the budget that I handed out tonight, the one that's dated in the bottom left-hand corner, 10/23/24. It has its own set of page numbers as well in the bottom right-hand corner. The reason for that is that some changes have occurred since the other one was sent to you. So, as you know, this budget has a lot of items that are impacting it in an upward direction. One of the other documents that I provided you was the budget drivers. So if you look at those budget drivers, you'll note that special education is up just shy of $400,000, 200,000 of which, or just shy of 200 of which, is special education transportation. So transportation is huge. We have some folks that are being traveled pretty far, so that number is quite large. Salary, wages, FICA, and New Hampshire retirement. And there is an inaccuracy here. I was pointed out by Eric that I did in fact give the pay raises of, I think it was 3%.
I saw 3%.
3% to the administrative assistants, which was a mistake on my part. I got carried away. So this note says does not include any adjustments for admin professional contracts or admin assistants. It does include the admin assistants, so I can definitely reverse that back out if needed. But still, you can see that just the normal cost of doing business with staff and based on the current staffing. So we did hire quite a few experienced staff this last year, which was one of our goals. Well, that comes with a higher price tag. And so that budget is up quite a bit, about $254,000. Homeless transportation is going to be up $43,000. So once again, we are required by law to provide transportation for homeless students, and it's a guess because every year they have to reapply for that status. So we're basing it off of current numbers. However, some of those people could drop off, other people could get added, and remember, it's only October. There's a long school year ahead of us when other people can go homeless. So this number is a best guess. Transportation for both regular ed for both high school and elementary school is up about 27,000. Once again, that's not a lot considering, as a percentage of the overall cost of transportation, which is over $500,000. Curriculum, this is the math curriculum. So if you look, we're guesstimating right now on the K-4 because we haven't received one quote for one of the products, and the staff has to decide which one that they want. So we're going to go with the higher number. The product that we don't have the quote for is the one that we know is more expensive. We just don't know what. So I put in 30,000 as a placeholder. That may come back at 20,000. I might be able to get $10,000 right off the top of this a week from now or 2 weeks from now. So that's one that still might end up not being a driver at all if we can get the price tag down. The other one is a lot lower. It's I want to say like 14. So if we were only doing that, this would already be $16,000 lower. So, and wouldn't have shown up on a driver list. I only put things that are 20,000 or more on the driver. So those are your drivers that are pushing things up. As you know, yeah, please interrupt
I don't know,
anytime.
maybe Melissa that might have this answered. What amount does Title I pay out of the homeless transportation? Like how much are they paying?
So we can decide how to use, you can, last year it was a little over 7,000, previous years it's about 1,000. So it is a matter of how much money we want to allocate to the homeless because it is a certain amount, like our grant is our grant amount. And so if we want to use it to cover homeless transportation as opposed to hiring a math tutor, or we can allocate it in different ways. I don't think that in next year's budget, because last year we moved forward, we rolled over on a large amount into this year's Title I. And you can only do that once. And we are now receiving over $50,000 in Title I funds. So we can't do that same rollover except for the one and done that we're doing for this year. So I don't see that we're going to be able to take more than 1,000 out of the grant.
Because you've spent it all.
But if you, it's certainly a decision for the board. So if you wanted to take less positions out of that budget and allocate more to homeless transportation, that could be done.
What's the well, maybe we could just see the breakdown of where the Title I money's going.
Well, it's all in salaries, so we're talking about your Title I math tutor, Title I ELA tutor,
Portion of the math interventions.
a portion of the math interventionist, and so those are all big numbers, and they're known numbers.
Okay.
If you put in homeless transportation, this is the thing that we ran into this year, or even last year, we had a lot of money left over because we had things in there that didn't end up getting used. So one of the problems you have, if you put $40,000 of homeless transportation into the Title I grant and use up a big chunk for that, but then let's say we get to the end of the year and you only used $10,000, suddenly I've got $30,000 I have to spend before September 30th. And summer's not a good time to spend money. So it can be quite challenging. I would rather do what she's doing, which is let's put the homeless into the budget where the uncertainty means fund balance. If you don't use it, and leave the Title I for the things that we know, so that we know at the end of the year we're not getting trapped into last minute scrambling like we did this last year. It was pretty rough.
So what about our IDEA money? That's already tapped out for next year or planned?
So it is planned out. I cannot, you cannot put tuition into a Title an IDA grant. I could put services, and transportation is a service. But again, you'd be robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like you have to take away other things to put that in the budget.
I just noticed a lot of the services that I thought used to be paid out of the IDEA grant in the budget, or at least the budget we received. I didn't look at this one closely.
It's the same, it hasn't changed.
That
That part.
are budgeted and not being paid for the IDEA grant. Like the psychologists, it seemed like there was a lot being increased for the school
The
psychologists.
school psychologist, you might be thinking about, there is a BCBA line now. Is that what you're thinking
I
about?
thought it was the school
I don't
psychologist.
believe-
I saw
There was
$70,000.
I did see an increase there, but I thought it was for IEPs. I'm not sure.
But I thought it used to be paid out of the IDEA.
It is.
Yeah.
And I wasn't anticipating changing that, so I'm trying to think of what that might have been. I think that was the BCBA services. Hold on.
I thought,
Contracted, 28,000 contracted services. Is that what you're,
I saw a school psychologist.
I
don't know
saw a
why.
psychologist in two places.
BCBA and school psych are now being paid for out of line 5330,000, and it is an increase of $28,000.
so to be clear, so is psychological services is the function. The actual activity is for a BCBA.
Okay.
And so this is, right now, we are contracting two different BCBAs for two different purposes. They're uniquely IEP based.
Okay.
So the BCBA services that we traditionally had out of the IDA funds
Mhm.
are still out of the IDA
Okay.
funds. This is the above and beyond unique, specially designed service for an IEP.
And we have used all special ed grants, all I know of the IDEA grant that are available.
So I can go back and kind of do an item analysis. But we have increased other services that are still in the IDA grant. Like, so for instance, we now have rec therapy. I mean, that was never in the budget. I put that in the IDA grant. That's still coming out of the IDA grant. Music therapy. The school psychologist, even those hours have gone up or days have gone up, that still is coming out of the IDA funds. Same with the BCBA that we contract from Strafford Learning Center, that's still coming out of the grant. And so it's just that some of the services, like for instance, when we had to increase OT services, I took the additional days out of the IDA grant. But last year I talked about with you guys that going forward, I wasn't going to be able to do that into the IDA grant. So you'll see there's an increase in the general fund. So I do really do maximize the IDA fund as much as I can. I spend down every dollar, penny.
For sure, no more grants.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions about the budget drivers?
Okay, so the next thing I'll draw your attention to is the very last page, which shows that we're now at a 5% increase. So our budget's going from 12.8 to $13.5 million. It's an increase of $649,131.78, or 5%. And this was considerably higher, as you may remember. And so what I'm going to do now, if it's okay, is to talk about a couple of the things that were drivers that are no longer drivers and make sure that we're okay with this. So first, I'll draw your attention to technology. There's a stable packet that was handed out to you. This packet really goes into where all the money's going to go. Okay, so the first X number of pages is all about what is behind all of this spending. I'm going to try and wrap this up into a really simple nutshell. I don't know the history of what was told to you, what was expected, et cetera, but what Jay has been able to figure out since he's come on board, we have a very antiquated system, a system that has gone beyond end of life. So for example, we have a 2012 server that stopped getting updated in 2021, and at this point hasn't had an update since 2021, which means that I'm pretty sure you know as well as I do, the hackers are getting better and better. We don't have any sort of updates to protect us from that kind of attack. So we have a server right now that is very antiquated and needs to be replaced. That's an example. Wireless. Most of our devices require Wi-Fi, what's it called? Wi-Fi 6. Wi-Fi 6. Our device, the devices we have can do that. But the stuff that gets that transmits that signal around, the directors and things of that nature, are ancient and can't handle it. So what's been going on in our building with this backbone being as weak as it is, we have stuff that drops off all the time. We had testing at one point this fall that had to stop. We've had individual classrooms that just, the signal is so weak. So the 7th, 8th grade wing is an example of this. It's so weak down there that oftentimes they can't get a signal. So we have all these great devices that can't even connect to the internet. And there's nothing he can do about it except replace the equipment. Now, once again, I don't know the history. I know that we've heard some conversations about, hey, it's coming up on, we need to get thinking about this, but I haven't heard the level that he brought to me, which is that, no, it's done, it's kaput. So that's a part of this. So that whole network instability, continuity, that kind of a thing. And the network is so delicate that one of the other things that we are doing is we're having some experts that have that ability to be a lot more sensitive with the system that are coming in and helping us out. So there's additional costs as well because the system is so. So not only are we losing that ability for teachers to make the connections they need with the students, we're also needing additional supports just to deal with the fact that our network is very, very delicate. Now, we do have a better system. It's in the SAU. It's newer, it's more reliable, but it is not connected to this building at all. And what we are, as part of this plan, contemplating is connecting the buildings for about $1,000. And by doing that, we can then take that server and we can get rid of that old one and we can replace it with the one in the SAU, thereby making us more safe, more secure. Now, this doesn't address the Wi-Fi, but it addresses the network security. It also will save us about, I think it was like $4,500 for the grease line, because that will now be connected to the building. So we'll do all of the buildings through this building, and we won't have to have that bill. So for $1,000, we're going to save $4,500. So that was one of the reasons why we're putting that part out there. The next big item, printing, photocopying. Almost every device, actually, I'm going to take that back. Every device in this building is beyond end of life. They have far exceeded and are being held together on loose prayers and lots of visits by the repair guy. In the SAU, it happens a lot. He's there a lot. And it's just because these machines have been used beyond where they should have been used. Our contract with the company also is kind of like, it's not really an effective contract anymore because once again, it's so old. It's not really in place anymore. The company's been getting better. Jay's been doing great stuff, made huge inroads with them because they were the ones that used to charge us the late fee all the time. And he's been able to get to the bottom of all that mess and we're being taken care of. And Jay's done a great job. The problem is, once again, the equipment is horrible. We have multiple classrooms with printers that don't even work anymore. which means they're going to the copiers, which is putting more drain on the copiers. Long story short, it is time to replace the entire system.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we own the printers, but we lease the copiers? Is that a true statement?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the 148, if that were put back in the budget, that would add another 1%.
You don't need to add anything back to the budget. I've got a plan for your tech.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to that yet. I'm explaining the overall problem we have, and then I've got a solution that's going to keep us from adding to the budget. Okay, so once again, copiers, and it's a big ticket item. Right now, we have one company. We know we're going to need more. I am going to ask the board to not make us go out to bid. Here's the thing about technology companies like this. They're very specific. And we want somebody that's going to be able to service us regularly and everything else. We want to go out for quotes. Typically, if it's over 10,000, you go out to bid. There's only about 3 or 4 companies in the state of New Hampshire that really can service us and do it in a reasonable way. We're already getting quotes from all 3 of those companies. Right now, we put the one we currently have as a placeholder. That's the $38,000+ because we needed something to budget. Jay's already had some great conversations with the other companies, and we very well might come in either with a lower dollar value or a better product or both. So once again, still more to come on this, but I definitely don't think this is one of those places where we can say, well, let's kick it down the road. You're not going to get board packets pretty soon. That's how bad some of these copiers are getting. Okay, the next thing is really our Chromebook situation. As you know, every few years you get this panicky IT person coming in going, oh my gosh, 300 devices end of life. What are we going to do? Sky's falling, right? We've come up with a plan. We would like to replace 100 devices or so per year. Like just this every year becomes a known item. It's a known line. It's going to happen. We've worked this out. And what that would mean is, and remember getting rid of them was difficult as well? What we would do is kindergarten would have its own little batch. Okay, they don't need one per kid. The kids don't need to travel with them or anything else. So kindergarten will have its own little batch and we'll rotate those out like we have been doing. But K to 8, what we'll do is from K to 4, first to 4, when they go into first grade, they get their own assigned device. It's theirs. At the end of 4th grade, if it's still operational, they take it home with them. It's theirs. It's end of life as far as we're concerned. We don't need it anymore. And here's one of the things. Remember we were doing crazy things to get rid of them? We may actually not have been allowed to do that because a lot of this stuff comes through E-rate. And E-rate has very serious restrictions about how to dispose of. So once again, just moving forward, we're just going to want to be really careful, make sure we're following the rules and regulations. By doing this, it's not a problem. This is in line with what E-rate says you can do to dispose of your devices. So they get it in first, take it home in 4th. The first day of 5th, they get a new device. They take that through 8th, they go home with it again. We never have to worry about this mountain of devices that we need in 1 year. The beauty is some of the kids aren't going to want to take them. Some of the devices will not be used, and those become our backups. Kid drops their device in a puddle somewhere. Well, we've got a backup. We can support that. The same thing's going to be true the first couple of years because we're going to have some devices that are going to be not in need. And so those become our backups. Stuff that was on near end of life but not quite there, we would have those as backups to be able to say, okay, you just ruined your keyboard, here you go. Jay and I would like to have a conversation with policy committee and eventually with the board about, do we want to start seriously figuring out a way to say, there's accidents and then there's malicious intent. When a keyboard has been completely popped of all of its keys, that's not an accident. Now, we believe by assigning one to a kid, that's going to resolve the majority of that because it's now yours, right? Tragedy of the commons, you stick everything back on a card, nobody knows until the next day when somebody else takes it out, and now who had it, right? So the problem with that, so in this case, they would all be assigned, everybody would have their own, they would be responsible for it. We believe that'll raise that bar and reduce the likelihood of those malicious, but they're still accidents, right?
I was actually going to ask that question because it came up with a coworker a couple of years ago. He's like, her charger got damaged. He's like, they're charging me for it. And I was like, was it an accident? He's like, it was, but I was like, there's responsibility attached to that. So
I don't know if we can charge people if they need it for their schoolwork.
Once again, I think that's a conversation down the road. That's not part of this conversation. We think just assigning it is going to reduce and eliminate a large percentage of what he's been experiencing since he arrived, which is a lot of damaged devices. Because it'll be theirs. and they're going to be more responsible with something that is quote unquote theirs. Also knowing that they get to keep it 4 years from now really might help encourage that as well. So that's a big part of our plan as well. And then, of course, just normal classroom technology. And this is where you probably all choked when you saw $90,000 for interactive TVs. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Basically, what has happened is way back when, you might remember it, Eric might remember it, but I doubt anybody else does. It was probably in the 2000s when you suddenly started getting all these grants for smart boards. And it went into the early 2010s. You might have bought some yourselves, but a lot of this was, it started with grants. Basically, the state made some sort of agreement, and boom, before you knew it, I remember it in Rochester, smart boards started coming in left and right, getting hung on every board, and everybody was so excited about them because it was new, it was fun. What we found out was that most people never used it as a smart board. They used it as a projected surface. They used it to write on and wipe off. Sometimes they merged those two things. But a smart board really is a pretty powerful tool that most classrooms don't need. Well, here we are, dozen or more years later, these devices are dropping off like crazy, right? The projectors, even when you put a brand new bulb in it, is still dark and dismal. Go into Audrey's room if you want to see one that's really hard to watch. They're all over the building, but that's just one that I know I look at and I'm like, 3 rows back, I can't read what's on the board. They're at end of life, or in some cases have stopped working altogether. We actually have one teacher right now who uses it regularly as a projector. It doesn't work at all, so we're trying to come up with a workaround for her for this year. So long story short, we had this crazy thought, let's just replace all 30 classrooms. No, we realized when we saw the 90,000, we saw what the budget looked like and everything else, this isn't an option. So we'll talk about that, but we do definitely need to get about 10 of them in here to just take care of those things that they're not fixable. We've got to replace. And then next year, probably look for another 10, and that would take care of ones that fail between now and then, as well as ones that we know are on the cusp of failing. After that, that last 10, we were talking about it, we'd probably just go into a as needed. So in other words, we'd probably put some money in every year for the budget. As they fail or as they're failing, okay, there's one that we got to do, there's one we got to do. But these devices are a lot less expensive. They are a lot less technical, so easier to operate for everybody involved. Being able to see them from a distance is much easier than it is on a screen, especially with our internal classrooms with those skylights. People don't want to go find the special stick with a special hook to pull the special chain to close the blind. As a result, and that's if they can even find the special stick with a special hook, which we can't find in some classrooms, so I'm probably gonna have to make some for people, but beside the point. So what it means is we oftentimes throughout the day have glares on that board that makes it almost impossible to see. The TV is much more readable, much more easily seen. So anyway, long story short, turn to the last page of that packet. I'm just going to give you the quick summary here. This was a huge number. I know everybody choked when they saw whatever it was. I can't even remember now, but it was a huge number. And so what I did was I worked with Jay, I talked to my leadership team about some of this stuff, and we were able to really kind of work this through. So here's the deal. And once again, all of this has to be approved by you to be in effect. I'm just putting it out there as the plan. We're going to take the 10 worst smart boards, as I just said, and replace those with those TVs. Instead of 30, we're going to do 10. That's a $60,000 savings off of the budget right there. Okay, by going just down to 10, we're going to spend $30,000 versus 90. Next, in the 22-23 school year, Zach, you probably all remember, applied for a fairly large E-rate and received it and spent it and was in the process before he left of getting reimbursed for it. He left, and somehow that did not get turned over to anybody else, that there were still more steps that needed to be done. As a result of that, it stopped in its tracks. Like nothing new happened with it. Our previous person, Rob, I don't believe was aware of it at all. I know I wasn't aware of it. Jay comes on board and he's like, hey guys, what's this? And it took us a while, but through some phone calls by him and some memory activities by us, we were able to finally realize, oh, that's the E-rate thing. So then he started really getting in contact with the company, and lo and behold, this money was going to expire this fall if we didn't get it. So he got on the horse, he started working it probably crazy. Melissa got involved because it was a grant, and I know Veronica got involved to do X, Y, and Z. So there was a lot of people in this thing, and we just got the check for $57,000 the other day.
Wow. Thank you.
This is unanticipated
Yes.
money as far as I'm concerned. I know it was planned way back when, but that is way back when. So we suddenly have $57,000 right now that can be spent on anything the board chooses to spend it on. My hope is that the board will recognize that, why don't we go ahead and apply for another E-rate, which I'll get to in just a moment, for all this stuff that we need to replace, use the $57,000 to pay for as much of that as we possibly can, and use the E-rate 50% off for the items that we're allowed to. Jay's done a special list, you can see it in there. So when you put all this together, it paid for the entire amount of the technology increases, fixes every one of those problems I just said to you, and reduces his budget by $27,875, or 11.3% decrease to the technology budget. But once again, the board would have to approve the use of that $57,000 and approve the rest of this through the budget process, right? So, any questions on technology? I'm sure there are.
I will just say, like I spoke to a parent, reached out to me yesterday, to talk about, you know, how we're doing the Lexia and we're doing the iReady math. And the iReady math, for anybody who's used it, you need to have, like the old Chromebooks that were donated do not work on the iReady math. So some people don't have computers that are updated enough for the iReady math. They can do the Lexia, but they don't have it for the iReady math. So I said, you know, just reach out. The school will lend you a computer to do your homework on, because they were using like another family member's computer. And I even do my own homework. I mean, like my computer is used for iReady math, Lexia, fine with the Chromebook. So I do think we just need to make sure that we have enough Chromebooks, because there are kids that don't have access to all this online stuff we're doing. They can't do the iReady math. It's a new program, and you can't upgrade your old
Yeah, no,
computers.
I've heard a lot of complaints this year about kids needing Chromebooks at home. That's why this plan was such a big thing.
Yeah.
This would eliminate that
Yeah.
need, because the kids would have a Chromebook that they could take home whenever they need
Right,
to.
yeah.
And we talked about the logistics of a first grader taking their Chromebook home every day and back and not having it get destroyed. I'm not recommending that would be the case for a first grader. I would imagine most first grader devices would stay in the classroom, because I think that's where they're primarily going to be used. But once you start talking 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, this is where it really becomes, as you were just saying, Shay, that ability to take it home. We could even talk down the road about helping families if they can't afford a protective case for it, getting them a protective case, because they do have padded carrying cases for devices like that. So we could talk a whole bunch of things, but we got to start with a plan, right? Getting this off the ground. The other thing I didn't mention, and Jay did a lot of work on this too, he and I think it was Natalie audited every software that's being used in our school. Some were dropped off, some additional ones were added because they were actually being used already and just weren't on the list. So he really streamlined that list, got it accurate, and this thing, and it's a slight increase, but not much, a couple $100. So it's very, but it's accurate now. You know, last year, I think one of you said, are you using all these? And I was like, I hope. This year, what I can say with certainty, because of the work that he's done, is yes, they're being used.
I have a quick question. I was actually looking at school board minutes from another school board from Nottingham, and I think they're going after a grant for some sort of cyber security. I just didn't know if there were other grants out there that we could apply for.
Yeah, so I'm looking into going to a couple of conferences in a couple of months, and we're going to talk all about education and technology. So I'm hoping to get some good information about
I
that.
don't know what it was, but it's in their
I'll
minutes
ask Sue
recently.
about it.
Yeah,
I'll ask Sue.
and it just seemed like it might be an opportunity. I think it was related to upgrading servers and the
Awesome, yeah,
backbone.
we'll look into that,
So,
sure.
no
One of the problems
promises,
that he's taught me about, because I knew E-rate existed, but I never really understood the ins and outs. He's really been looking into it, learning about it, and taught me about it. One of the things I learned is it can't be used for any video or visual displays. So the TVs, we can't offset with E-rate. One of the questions I said to him, and he's already looking into it and just hasn't found it, but I'm hoping we do come across one. There's got to be a grant for video, for visuals, right?
Yeah.
They were used to, I don't know how many these smart boards we got hung on our wall back in Rochester because of all these grants that were out there. So there has got to be grants for visuals. And if there are, and we approve this budget and it gets through March and he finally finds that grant in June, great, right? I mean, either it gives a fund balance to the taxpayers, or we use that money to buy the next year's round, and next year's budget is $30,000 less.
You can't usurp something for a grant, right?
These aren't the types of grants that you can't use for that. Those are the Title I, Title II, so on and so forth. You can't supplant your budget, but this kind of grant, like E-rate, things like that, it's designed to supplant.
Okay,
It's designed to say, okay, we're going to ease the pain and suffering of your district by taking these items that you need off of your plate and paying for 50. Well, in our case, one of the things we didn't know, either of us knew, but we looked it up, is some districts get 90%, but it's all based on your free and reduced. We don't have free and reduced that can get us more than, so our rate is 50%. Other people you might hear, another district, well, we got 90. You probably have a much of 50%. I think it was like 50% free and reduced. So if you're hearing somebody say they're getting 90% E-rate, they have a very high free and reduced. We're just never going to have that.
so we're not talking about the cybersecurity of the grant that you're looking
I think that's what it was.
Well, so I did get approved for a grant for cybersecurity training for myself. It covers like 17 different courses that are really expensive actually, and they're all covered now by the state of New Hampshire. So I'm gonna be taking a lot of those because I don't have a lot of those certifications, so.
I thought this was for hardware. It was something in the minutes
Oh, yeah,
recently
I'll
for
look.
Nottingham
I'll-
School Board,
yeah.
so.
And I'll ask you
Just worth
to,
checking on it.
Nottingham, you said?
yeah, Nottingham,
Let Debbie look into
Yeah,
it. It'll
sure.
streamline
Yeah.
the search.
the chair is my friend. Anyway, when we were at the Kidder Law Firm, they kept talking about what happened in Keene. And I guess their whole computer system was hacked. You were one
Yes,
of those? Yeah.
yes.
Their whole computer system was hacked and they actually, I thought money was even removed or something. It was, and I wondered if Primex would have covered, but I just
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
have cyber protection, but once again, if it's one of those things where they hold you hostage, doesn't matter what kind of money. I
Or
mean,
compliance.
Yeah.
Are we in
Yeah.
compliance? Because
Yeah.
insurance will cover you as long as you stay in their compliance
Right.
cover. So as long as we're in compliance and they say you have to have a server that has this, something that has this, that has this, as long as we have those things, we're covered. If we don't,
So anyway, you can look up Keene and cyber attack, what happened in the district, yeah.
Cyber-wise, the server from the SAU, would that be something that had to wait to be until the next budget cycle to happen, or could that happen sooner?
Well, we've got $57,000, so if you as a board authorize us to start expending that 57,000, a whole bunch of the stuff in the budget could be paid for this year, which, like I said, I've already reduced the lines, assuming you were going to say yes.
Okay, I just had the $4,500 in my head, but that was a $4,500 savings.
Savings.
Okay,
Spend 1,000 to connect the two buildings. It's an
Yeah.
estimate. We
Yeah.
haven't actually had an official, I don't think you've had an official company come out and look at it, right?
no.
But he thinks it's actually on the high end. It's probably even a little less
Yeah,
than
it
that.
might be a little less.
Because they're just running some fiber optics and whatever
Yeah.
between the two buildings.
um,
Once they've done that, but here's the real trick, and I know he'll thank me, I think, for saying this. We may not want to do it while school's in session.
oh,
This system is 2012, and 90-year-olds that can't breathe very well, that's our server right now. I'm afraid you look at it the wrong way, and the thing's just gonna collapse. So here's the thing, I don't know if we want to do this, at least not outside of a significant break. Like, maybe it's possible, and you'd have to tell me, can
So
you do it over February break?
I could do it over a break, because I could basically get you guys all onto the school server and then start setting that one up. What it would probably take is just to have the other parts of the budget confirmed so that I know that I'm gonna have, consulting services in case I run into issues with the integrated servers, that sort of stuff. I don't like flying blind into areas. If I can't answer a question, I need to know I can pick up a phone and get an answer to it before I, start attacking critical.
And because it's already such bad shape, we've already had to do that for this year. We've had to get him some consulting services because he looks at it and goes, I'm afraid if I touch it.
No, I
So-
did touch it. I touched it one morning and I was up till 3 a.m. rolling back Windows updates.
So-
So I won't touch it again.
So what you're asking us for now is a motion to approve the $57,000 E-rate
I wasn't,
refund.
but I
Okay.
would love it if you did. So once again, this is just explaining budget. We're in the budget section of this thing, and all I'm saying to you is, if you do approve all this, I can reduce the budget down to 5%. This is a big chunk of that 5%. The other big chunk is the tuition, which I haven't explained yet. But this is a lot of money. It's written down here at the bottom. You can see it. So it's $148,935 less.
So what do people think about this plan? Are people in support of it? You want to put some things back in the budget? You want to go with this plan? What do you
I
think?
mean, I'm in support of it. I like the idea of kind of, okay, you don't have to remodel your whole house in 1 year. You kind of take it chunks at a time, and that's what I kind of feel like this plan does. As long as, he feels confident that that he doesn't need a little bit more, it's a big enough Band-Aid to get us through sort of the 3 years, so.
More than a Band-Aid, this
Sounds
repairs,
like it's
this takes care of many issues.
Yeah.
It doesn't resolve them all, like the Chromebooks are still gonna take some time to get completely cycled through. But the backbone would work, the wireless would work, I mean, all those things suddenly are back up to top notch. All of our devices working, teachers happier because they're not getting disconnected every 5 minutes, things like that. A lot less IT requests for him.
The server that's in the SAU has capacity for all the seats we need for all the Chromebooks and everything.
It's actually a higher capacity than the one that's in the school.
Yeah, they bought a really nice server for over there when you guys bought an SAU. I don't know what the deal was there, but you bought a really nice server. It's just, it's only serving about what, 10 people? 6 people, whatever it is.
I was sure that you already knew the answer to the question, it's just that there's only like 6 people that work
Right,
over there.
it
and I'm
doesn't
like,
make sense,
I don't
right? You're
understand.
like,
Because it was new, so when we were
Yeah.
doing it, it was like, you know.
And I'm sure it was set up for this exact sort of thing.
Yeah,
You know,
there you go.
It was planned out well.
It is a 2018, so it wasn't brand new. You
Yeah.
did buy a used device, but it's still so much newer than the thing that is
Yeah, it's
operating the school.
Question, the unanticipated, because that's, is that technically considered the $57,000 unanticipated funds? So like, what's the
I don't know what you technically call it.
protocol for
That-
handling that?
So
Good point.
I was gonna
Hearing.
ask that question and kind of talk out how I understood it. So this was money that was applied for in the 22-23 year. That money never came in the 22-23 year, so we spent out of our budget and have already returned that money back to the town.
And then
So,
a whole nother year on top of that.
and so if it's not considered unanticipated revenue, then I'm fine with approving it, but if it is unanticipated revenue, then we just have to do the process.
It's a super easy process. We would do it not at our next meeting because it's not in
It's not
town.
a public one.
Yeah, so we would, it's super easy. We would just open our meeting up and say we're having a public hearing to accept the unanticipated funds for the,
I think that's the best way.
the E-rate money that was applied for 2 years ago, but we didn't receive until this year. And we would like to take that money and use it in our technology.
Investment.
So I think that's.
Even if
a-
it's not technically needed, I love the idea.
We
Because
should.
it just
It
takes any
covers us
controversy
to
off.
something,
Yeah, and
otherwise we would get.
It also might be good to let them know, let the
Yeah.
public know if we're gonna have that, how much surplus we returned that year.
Right.
Because I think it was probably
That was
pretty
like,
high.
I think that was like 800,000 or 900,000.
Yeah.
That was the big.
That was the big one.
Well, that's because of, I have so many reasons to explain about that, but, all right, so the $57,000, so we're saying we like the plan. We wanna go forward with the
I don't
plan,
think there's any way you cannot go forward
unless we put it all back in the budget.
based on the
Yes.
status of our network as presented.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the sooner we can do this, the better, because
That was gonna be my next
basically
request.
all of our children's personal data is effectively at risk.
Are you okay with me authorizing him to go ahead and spend $1,000 to get the buildings connected, because that is stuff?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And once again, I mean, he'll be reimbursed from the 57,000, obviously, but,
So the,
okay.
so
So-
the public
so you-
hearing
Yep.
would be on November 20th, because you do have to, I think it's a 2-week notice for a public hearing. So we just have to have it posted, there'll be a public hearing to accept unanticipated funds of $57,000.
Do I give any explanation with it, or do I just say
Yeah.
$57,000?
From, it's E-rate money, technology money, unanticipated from E-rate to be used toward technology improvements.
You got it. So keep it simple, but
Yeah.
a little bit of detail.
And then we would just start our meeting, like the first 15 minutes would be that, then we can go into a non-public and then have a regular meeting.
So that was a lot of work. I can't thank him enough.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Thank you.
think we all can breathe easier about that.
Learned a lot about directors and Wi-Fi 6.
more than you probably want.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
All right.
you.
So the next thing on here that we'll talk about quickly is a major changes tuition. So when I did the original budget, tuition values and everything, I was going off of some numbers that I had from August. Towards the end of August, we had tuition numbers. Since then, the tuition has dropped by several people. I don't know the exact number. And as a result of that, also I was probably anticipating a little bit higher number than I needed to for the tuition increase. So now it's at 3.9, which we don't know it yet. They won't tell us any of our CBNA numbers, I think, until probably November. But I did lower it from, it was like 4.5, I dropped it to 3.9. So between those two things, which, by the way, looking at 10-year average, 3.9 is even a little high. So I do think it's going to probably come in less than that, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, with those two factors involved, that cut the budget by $231,885 and totally changed the nature of the entire conversation. The other things that are on there, just real quick. So I'm looking at the cuts for next year, the first part, the part that was actually already removed. So the food service, 40,000. So let me explain that. That's an interesting story too. So a couple of years ago, we had a business manager who did not understand how food service was paid and did not pay it properly. And as a result, it looked at the end of the year like we had paid a lot more than had been told to us. So the next year when I was budgeting, I budgeted a much higher number. Then last year, same thing. We had a new business manager that it got a little confusing. And granted, the changeover to Whitson's made it even worse. So what happened there was we got things that looked like bills that weren't bills. So we ended up paying $35,000 more. So when we took, they've credited us, we've got it all taken care of, it's already been put back. But what it meant is the number they've been telling me all along is actually the accurate number. Remember I came to you last year and said, I think it's 220. I mean, I don't know, because they gave us this big certain, no, it was the actual number. It was just that things weren't being paid for properly. Or in a proper time frame, I guess would be the better way of saying it. And as a result of that, what I've been assured of and now know to be true is that next year it's 199.9 something, not 220, not 240. So I've been able to cut $40,000 because I put in 240 as a placeholder. I didn't know. I'm like, I don't get this. But I was able to talk to the business office and then talk to Chris as well. And between the two of them, we were able to get to the bottom of it. And like I said, the money's already been credited to us. So our first two bills of this year were credited. So that takes care of the money. So once again, long story short, food service, good to go.
Do you want to just tie in about our other positive news about the commodity prices?
Oh, yeah. So I think, I don't know if I mentioned at a board meeting or just in passing, I said that, the brown box and the DOD Fresh had gone from, so one was free, it was $0, and the other one was like $3.50-ish. I don't remember which was which, but once again, there's two different things. Brown box, DOD Fresh. One was free, one was $3.50 per case. And we got a letter from the DOD saying everything was going to $7 a case. So from 0 to 7 and from $3.50 to 7. So it sounded really scary when I saw that. I'm like, holy mackerel, that's a lot of unanticipated. What's that?
It was going to happen immediately.
Yeah, effective October 1.
Right.
So I was like a little nervous there. But Chris has been able to take a look at it, and he says he's really, really close to being certain to say there's no cost impact to this year because the way he has been budgeting for it and the utilization that we've had has been lower than what we've been budgeting for. So he thinks we're going to be fine for this year. Next year, he knows we're fine. So what I've budgeted for food service for next year covers that cost increase already. So the 199.9 something, so I just said 200,000 in the budget because it was like off by a few bucks. So $200,000 for food service next year, which means it's only a 3% increase. Remember last year, we were like, what the heck? That's so much more than we thought. It really wasn't. It really has been right around that 3-4% per year. So,
Great.
sigh of relief.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear later today. I mean, the food service is really, I think it's a really good place. So I'm happy with it. Part-time para, we had a situation occur where the need has dropped a little bit, so I was able to cut that position. So once again, that's just the equivalent of a part-time para being taken out. The JV coaches are nothing.
That was supposed to be actually, that was 1,500. I don't know where that,
No, it's 1,292.
why? I thought it was 500 for each.
No, one already had 300. So you're only losing 200 from that one. One was, you already had one in the budget for 300.
Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, if you have one volleyball coach, it's 1,000. If you have two volleyball coaches, it's 1,300.
Okay.
So the 500 went to 300, and which put it back to the way it was. And the other two, I just wiped the lines. So that's $1,200. Well, and the 92 is the FICA.
Okay.
So that's where 92 is
Okay,
at
all
FICO.
right.
I'm like, it's still an uneven number.
Yeah, no, well, a lot of numbers are gonna be uneven because of FICO, right? FICO's this weird thing, 0.0765%, you know, it's like, okay, let me see here. Homeless, we already talked about that, it's just, we're basing it on the actuals, and rolling the dice, right? I mean, that's what you're always doing with homeless.
So if homeless happened to be more than budgeted, that doesn't come under special, people with disabilities, so we couldn't take that out of that fund, correct?
You
It would be a
could
fund
take
balance.
something else
Right.
out of special ed
Okay.
and move the money from the special ed line.
Okay.
That's the word correct.
Furniture, it had $25,000. Let me just give an explanation. I've looked at past budgets, it fluctuates. I don't know the rhyme or reason to it. But as I walk through the building, everything from the tables and the chairs in this library to tables and chairs throughout the building, we're aging. I mean, it's as simple as that. And I know this last year from fund balance, we bought all the teachers a new teacher chair, which, by the way, thank you so much. There were a lot of chairs that were quite literally being held together with duct tape and other items. So it really, I think, boosted the morale and just made people feel, valued. So that was great. The goal with putting 25,000 in was to really do the same thing I'm talking about with Chromebooks. It's 25,000 is a drop in the bucket if you're talking about what's wrong in the building. But what you do is you start tackling it. You start saying, okay, we're going to go find the 2 worst teacher desks this year. We're going to replace, or 3, whatever it is. We're going to replace those. We're going to find we're going to take and replace 2 library tables this year. We're going to, you know what I'm saying? So you start the process of saying, we're going to slowly but steadily start replacing the worst items in the building. Obviously, the first thing you take out of the furniture budget, making it zero is a little nerve-wracking because things do break. The first things you pay for are the broken items, right? And then after that, you say, okay, what do we have left? Okay, let's go ahead and start replacing these items. So that was the plan that I had. Once again, I get it. When you have a 9% increase, you don't keep the 25,000 for furniture. But I do think that we have to seriously consider down the road that takes a priority spot.
I do know, I thought that we had been, furniture was one of the items that oftentimes was showing up on the end of the year wish list for fund balance. And I feel like when, maybe not this past year, but the year before, we had purchased.
We ordered a lot of tables, and I almost think that there was a problem with supply and demand, because it was a couple of years after COVID.
Yes.
We couldn't get them,
They took a long time to come or they didn't come.
or maybe they never came, but we used our surplus to buy tables for a couple of classrooms, I think. And they never,
I just don't remember, I don't
They
think we
never-
did that this year, right? We did,
bought the
there was
We
a
bought the teacher chairs.
teacher chairs, okay, yeah.
And we did have to, I know already, we've had to buy some specialty tables for special needs situation in K. So there's some stuff being purchased there. So we have to do it, we have to do it. I get it, and we, like you said earlier, rob Peter to pay Paul, we do what we gotta do. But I do think that you want to try and have a budgeted amount that is a significant amount. $25,000 is nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of money, and it's a lot of stuff. And I did give you a list in that budget that's in your packet. You can still see the list. I think I might have removed it from the new one. But you can see what I was thinking. And this was just a thought. And it was taking that, like I just described, take a couple teacher desks, take a couple, 3rd grade was our primary focus. There was a lot of concern with the tables and chairs and everything else in 3rd grade. So that was going to be a big focus of ours. But once again, I just want to make sure we're understanding that it wasn't in there willy-nilly. It really does feel like a need, but I understand. We got to do what we got to do for this year.
That might be a good facilities committee thing, that the facilities committee was aware, so if we wanted to do this next year or whatever,
Yeah.
maybe it could be a good conversation to start there.
There's an inventory spreadsheet that's getting built, right?
There's already a lot of it's already built, but now they're transferring it over to that new software product that they're using. So hopefully it'll be something that eventually will be very transparent and easy to look at.
Something, so I mean, seeing things shape up in this technology plan, that was very good. Like if something like that is the way to.
So that's where we lost the $508,469 that you see reduced in the budget that I provided you with tonight. That's dated today's date.
so the final numbers for Go Brown have not come in yet.
No,
And the Primex numbers are all final.
Primex are now final. Yep, I was able to get that all up to date.
And you didn't put that as a separate budget driver, you just
No,
put it
because
all in between?
it actually balances out.
Cool.
It's only a couple $1,000s for your property and liability. It went up by, it's in here, let me look. I don't want to give you a false number here.
I thought our Primex, our health insurance,
Health insurance went up, yeah.
I'm
That's
wrong when
covered
I
in that
say
second one down.
But health insurance was much more manageable this year
I thought
compared to
what was
last
the
year, right?
percentage increase for health insurance?
Yeah, give me just a sec. I just want to
Four
find this
to
one
six
for
or something like
you.
that.
I see Health Trust is at 6.1 and 9.1.
I thought I
So,
saw 9%.
so Primex,
Oh, no.
so property and liability, which is on page 18 of the new one I gave you, went from 29,610 to 33,548, which is $3,938
So
increase.
that's like
I saw the six.
When you look at the other lines that Eric's talking about, so their rates went up by like 4 or 5%, Primex, but what it's also based on, what we have to, when I calculate the rate increase for us, I'm looking at our utilization. So it's not just how much they've increased the cost, it's how many people are accessing it. And so for us, both of them went up, but when you look at here and you look at the Primex numbers, let's see here, what is this one? Unemployment went down 17% for us. Workers' comp went up 12% for us. They're relatively small numbers, just so you know. We're talking a couple $1,000s up and a couple $1,000s down. I believe the net, when I figured it all out on a separate spreadsheet, was that we actually had a slight savings. That it was actually just a tiny bit less, like a couple bucks less.
So, I mean, doesn't Health Trust give us that guarantee not to?
Nope, I'll talk about that for you.
Okay.
So this is Primex we were just
That's-
talking about.
that's
Two different
changed,
pieces.
right?
Yes. So Health Trust has changed their practice. They are no longer going to do guaranteed maximums. They're going to give us our actual rates in October. So you would have thought that would have been a done deal years ago, but hey, I don't know. I don't know how it works. So we actually have our real numbers now. They sent those out a little while ago. The AB 20 plan went up, let's say around 5%. I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head.
6.1.
Does it say it on here?
Yeah, it is.
6.1, yeah.
No, you're looking at the percent increases, which once again, oh, no, okay, yeah, hold on. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, you do have it. There you go, 6.1 for AB 20 and 9.1 for AB SOS. The explanation for the difference, normally they go up the same amount. They've gone back and they reevaluated the AB SOS, and what they've discovered is that they did not price it right out of the gate. So they need to do a correction. This is a price correction. So they should be back in lockstep again next year. So once again, that's what the difference was for this year. But yeah, you know, I haven't broken it down to say how many AB 20s are there, how many SOSs are there, and how does that merge together, and what's the overall percent increase. But it's somewhere between 6.1 and 9.1. It's probably closer to the 6.1 because many more people take SOS than AB 20.
So the amount of money that we put in the health savings account,
Yes, that's.
what is that amount?
Yeah, so I gotta find it, but I reduced that greatly, and I'll explain why.
I did see
Yeah, I was
that.
curious about that usage.
Trying to,
That's
I
in
think
the
that was
SA,
in,
it's in the SAU.
Yep.
I just gotta find the right page. Student services, here we go. SAU, okay, I think we're on page 13. Here we go, district-wide HRA. So this is the one that pays the SOS deductible. The full budgeted amount for this year would be $86,000. Based on our 23-24 utilization, it's about 50% of that. So I did 50% of that. And that actually it was actually more like 45%, and I went ahead and just made it 50 because I'm a big fan of a little bit of a buffer on these types of things. It really comes down to how many people go to the doctor and use it. Now, there's another change to this. We are covering, I think year 1 was 100%, year 2 was 90, and year 3 I think is 75, if I remember correctly. The HRA is being changed by Health Trust. They will no longer allow any employer to cover more than 50%. That starts effective next year. Because we have a CBA, they grandfather us until we negotiate our next CBA.
Yep.
But when you go into that CBA, you cannot put on the table anything greater than 50% covered by employer. Reason behind it, the health insurance company has created this plan with the goal of creating smart shoppers. Don't go to the most expensive place to get your MRI. Don't go to the most expensive place to get your blood drawn. We want you to shop around
And
and
if
we
your
provide.
deductibles are paid for, then you,
There's no motivation.
Right.
Because the whole motivation here is not to pay $3,000 for my family plan. My goal would be to only pay $100 or $500. Well, in order to do that, you have to shop around. And so that's what they want people doing, and they've built an entire software product for this. Like I needed my blood drawn. I went on, I typed in, I need blood drawn. I wanted it in the Concord area. 3 different places came up. One gave me it. By the way, we get checks back. They pay us to go to the place because it's so much cheaper than other places. And, you know, I've had some people say, well, I don't want to go to this MRI because I get my MRIs normally over here, or, you know, those types of things. That's wonderful. You don't have to. This is just a way to save yourself money and to save the company money, which is, of course, the bottom line. They want to save money. And so, once again, this HRA thing is going to be different. I keep pointing to you because you negotiated the last one. That you're going to most likely, I would assume, be a negotiator again, and that really, that's a piece you're going in with. It's probably going to be upsetting to staff.
Well, we were already,
But
I mean,
it's uncontrollable.
it started off at 100% to ease the burden
Yeah.
of switching to a new plan, because this was a new plan.
Yeah.
And it's already staggered down. I think it probably just makes it a little bit quicker
Then you would have gone.
of a jump than we probably would have
Yeah.
been negotiated.
But it does give everybody another year to deal with it and to start
Right,
to
and
think
to
about
know
it.
that it's coming.
And for a single person, just keep in mind, it's $1,000, 50% is $500. That's not that devastating. The family plan's a little bit harder. I mean, that'll be $1,500 out of it if you went to 50%. I'm just making a projection here, but so that's that. Any other questions? Electricity, I dropped $16,000 based on the numbers we're seeing. I think we fixed a significant problem.
The meter socket that's not working correctly.
Yeah. They claim it's not that, so we won't say that, but, you know, at the same time, whatever the problem was, it seems to have been rectified, so I lowered it $16,000. That was very helpful. We probably could lower it more, just so you know. Jess probably said, oh, why not 25? We probably could. I just, once again, I like 2 years of data before I make those kinds of adjustments.
Anybody else have any specific questions? I know this is all new, and this particular budget we haven't seen.
Just give me a minute to go through my old budget, because
Yeah,
that's where I had
please.
everything marked up.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I did the,
I have a question. It looks like we have an AED in our nurses' budget,
Yes.
and I thought I remembered with our wish list in the
yeah.
spring, we got up to date on our AEDs. Did something
No.
happen to one?
We fixed the one that was dead.
Okay.
The other two are just as old as the dead one, like over 20 years, and they need to be rotated out. Or now, here's the fun part. I have applied for 2 AED grants, and my hope is that we're going to get one or both. One would be 100%. The other one gives you a reduced price. So I'm hopeful, but I don't have them yet. So I do want to budget them in. But if that comes up between now and the end of January, I will be sure to let you know, and we can cross
Okay.
that off.
Did we put one outside also?
It hasn't been mounted outside yet. We actually need to purchase an outdoor box,
Okay.
which isn't that expensive, and we're in the process of
We
looking
need that
into it.
outside, yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, that could,
Yeah. So we're working on it now, and my hope is to have that resolved by spring sports.
I have a question, and this is looking at my old budget, so I'm not sure if you changed up my new one. Special ed question. It is, contracted services is, I'll give you the 5330 line. There's no, it's a $28,000 increase. We had,
Give us the fourth numbers before it.
Wasn't that the one
So
that I?
12, it's 1,200.
Is that the one I just went over?
well, there-
it's the 2140.
Okay.
If that's the one where the $28,000.
She's looking at a 1,200,
5330. It's, yeah,
Psychologist, services, sorry.
Yep.
okay, because there's nothing there. It's just based on IEP needs. So this is again for the psychologist?
No,
Is this the
just the
I-
function? Just want to make sure we're talking. about the same.
1,200, 5330, 000. And it does say just based on IEP needs. I like that.
Let me, sorry.
Maybe it's in there twice.
No,
It
yeah.
might be in there twice.
There you go.
So
That would be
let-
awesome.
Let me just go back
Would be
and,
awesome.
It's the
because,
same
you know, I have detailed notes, but obviously they can't
Right.
be in the public document.
Right,
So let
right.
me just go back and make sure.
Okay.
Um,
But normally it will say, for hearing or for physical therapy or for some type of therapy.
Yep, those would all be under their respective functions.
All right, so I just want to,
Good catch if that was
yeah,
true.
yeah. All right, so my other question for you, and this is just for us to hear the exact numbers so that when people talk about the large special ed increase and the number of case managers needed, could you tell me and tell the board the number of cases each case manager is managing?
We don't know off the top of my head.
Can we have that for the next meeting?
Yes, okay, that's perfect. All right, and then just our percentage of.
I had actually already written it down
Okay.
before, so I,
So I can definitely do how many students does each case manager case manage?
Yes.
Did you say you wanted something else?
I don't know if you can just tell us the number of students who are receiving services. You can get the number, right?
Yep, so are you looking just for the district or district?
For district.
school? District, yep. So I can do that for next.
And then
week as well.
also for co-brow,
Yeah, so do you want me to separate them out or do you want them
separate.
Okay, and what do I do for out of district?
I think we already, that's,
No, but where do I count for that? In Strafford or in Co-Brown?
out of district,
Yes.
I would just make a separate.
make a
line.
separate line for out of
Seven
district.
out
I
of
wanna know
district.
how many people in-house, how many students in-house,
Elementary.
elementary, and then co-brow.
So not a percentage of actual amount of students.
Yeah. Thank you. I have another one, but you can keep going.
So here's one that could potentially be a place to slash a little bit based on actuals in the 2200. It's 2210, 5322, 003,
I'm sorry, start over again.
2210.
Yeah.
5322, 003.
Yeah, I got it.
Workshop reimbursement curriculum.
I don't think we can.
Okay,
Here's the
I was just
reason.
looking at the
Yeah.
actuals from a couple years ago.
I agree with you. So
CBA.
here's the thing, we have so many new people. We're working on getting our paras to para 2 certification, which is gonna be coursework. We've got a number of people that are going to workshops this year that have never talked about it before. I wanted to as well. I
Yep.
looked at this and said, why, if I've spent $4,000, why can't I reduce it to 13,500? I'm nervous to do it. You can if you want. I'm just nervous to do it because I think we're gonna hit our line. And once again, like I said, we have to have 13,500 available for them. So
Okay.
if we
Oh,
reduce,
right,
it's
right.
CBA. So if we reduce that to 10,000 and we go over 10,000, I have to keep paying it.
Yeah,
But that's
It's
up to
fine.
you. If you
no,
want to reduce
that's actually, I actually like to see that line spent. I
Yeah.
just noticed that, historically, it's not.
Yeah, I did reduce the coursework. Well, I didn't reduce it, but in fact, I increased it, but it's still not at its cap.
Mhm.
What I was worried about, like I said, is I have so many new people that are all taking courses right now.
Okay, and then just below that, the 2220, 5110, 000, salary goes up 5.5%. But below that, maybe 5 or 6 lines, the certified retirement only goes up 3.3%. I would have, did they change the rates?
Oh,
Do they-
this retirement went down.
Okay, okay,
We went from 19.64% to 19.23%.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I took
All
this
right,
under
all right,
that.
okay, that note wasn't making sense to me. I thought those were the 2 different rates, but it's been lowered.
It's been lowered.
Okay.
That's what it's saying, is that, so if you look at the
I get it
notes
now.
on, yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Just so everybody else, if you look at the retirements, I'm giving you the old and the news. Both went down, both the certified and the uncertified or
Are you
non-certified
talking
went
about
down.
the rate that
The
the
rate
district
that
of?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the
I think we
employee,
would've-
the employee's always gonna be 7%, where it's us that changes. So we went down in both, I don't know if they had a banner year or what, but they are charging us less. And I think it's a 2-year number.
Yes, no, I remember that, I remember.
Yeah,
that,
so it's a
that.
2-year number, so I think we look at this year and next year with that
Yes,
lower rate.
yes, yes. Okay.
Good catch again, Eric, I hadn't explained that, so I'm glad
Yeah.
you asked about it.
While you're looking, I have a question, ESY. I know that this last year, because it had already happened, we went ahead with the large increase, hourly increase, and we're still going to do that. I did some checking. This is, 1290, 5110.
No, I
I don't know if anybody else is looking at that.
the
So-
1290s, all of them are up.
So remember that we were sort of a little surprised at the increase, hourly increase, but we went for it because they were already offered.
yeah.
So as long as we're good with keeping it that way, I just want people to come to see that.
Just, let me give further explanation on that. So you're actually right. I mean, some of that is because of those increased rates, but also we did have to increase how we're budgeting for it. We were not budgeting enough. So we had people this year that exhausted the money that's in the SY and went negative. And so we had to increase this. Contracted services is an example of where we did some increase. And then, of course, in all the salaries, we had to increase. So we just didn't have enough. It was not being budgeted properly in the past for the number of hours. So I think last year, if I remember correctly, we had said it was like 3 point something, and that didn't mean hours, that meant percent or something like that. So now it's actually listed in there properly. It's 3.25 hours per day at a BA 15 step 10 hourly rate, blah, blah, blah. So once again, it's now being budgeted properly. It was a misunderstanding in the way the numbers were being presented in the past.
I think it's just that the hourly rate was different.
Correct. It was 35
That
and
was a
20.
factor. Yes.
And it is a factor, but it's not, I want to say the lion's share of this was because we were not calculating the numbers properly.
As long as people are good with that, just to point out.
Yeah, I am. There was a little savings. I noticed that the $4,800 for the district clerk went away because the minutes are now being done in-house.
Yes.
So that was a little savings there I wanted to point out. So in the 2320 line,
Give me a sec.
in the SAU,
Yep, so 2320, go ahead.
so the superintendent is now the salary is now being split with the school.
Correct.
And my question was the health insurance, a couple lines down, dropped 20%.
Because I'm splitting that too. Everything's split.
Okay,
My
okay,
entire amount, and not to mention, so I went down, but she's added. See what I'm saying? Last year, April wasn't in the SAU budget.
Yes,
It was
yeah.
Elizabeth in the business office
Yeah.
budget. So there's multiple factors happening between the business office and the SAU, but I do split all of mine is
okay,
split with the
everything's,
school, everything.
everything's half and half, all right. I just wanted to make sure, I get that.
The other thing I'll point out is the attorney.
Yes, I have a note of that.
Yeah, so when we get bills from the attorneys, they don't separate it into different categories. And to be honest with you, the descriptions that we get don't align with anything we had written in our descriptions. You know, it really just comes down to their legal services. So what I propose and have put onto this document, but can easily put back, is that we just have one legal line. Like, it's so difficult. Veronica's always coming into my office. Melissa and I talk about it all the time. It's like, okay, so you just had a special ed thing. What is that? Oh, I just had something. Debbie asked me a question. I had to go to the attorney. Is that a board? So it just seems complicated to have two different lines. Why not just say we have a legal line and I merge them together where we're not doing, oh, we are doing a contract
I was
next
just
year.
gonna ask about that.
Ooh, okay. I was thinking this year you were not doing, but next year you are doing negotiation. So yeah, that line, it's up to you. We don't spend, unless we have legal issues, we don't spend that kind of money. And this year so far, we haven't had serious legal
I would be
issues.
curious what what the numbers were roughly for the budget, the last time negotiations
Well,
happened.
look at the actuals, are right over here.
No, but that was the
That's not
22,
budget.
20, that was the 22, 23 year that we did that. And that also had a Cole Brown,
Oh, yes, we spent a
contract.
lot that
A
year.
lot of
That was a
money.
lot.
So-
But we won't be doing the Co-Brown.
right.
We also spent a lot of time with Dean.
I would say that was two different attorneys.
Two different law firms.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that
was
was the
all
same
legal.
year.
Yeah.
And we had an investigation.
Oh, we had so much
had
going on. Oh, we had
the
a
list of,
lot
I
going
mean,
on.
I was going to attorneys like every day.
They were our
I don't
best
anticipate that. I
friends.
mean, we have really gotten to a point now where it's very rare that I talk to Dean and we keep our conversations as tight as we can. My bigger concern, the unknown, would be any of the special ed stuff that crops up on you that you don't know about. But I think Melissa does a great job figuring it out. And I think-
She's been very taken.
And I think Jerry, so we still do use Drummond Woodson for Jerry. Jerry's Ellen. So he's been great, and he's very reasonable. And Dean's can do special ed as well, so we can reach out to him, but Jerry is her preference, so we're still sticking with that. And our legal costs have not been that onerous. So once again, you can do what you want.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know
think it
if that
makes sense.
number was big enough for contract negotiations here. That's all.
I know, hard to say.
Yeah, we can just like sort of put a star by it that will come back to it.
If she saves us $28,000 in town, we could definitely bump it up without having it hurt our bottom
Yeah, and
line.
give it to the attorneys. That's fine.
So it's an equal transfer from 5,000 from the next page.
Yeah.
Coming over to this one. Can that just go in the note that it's an equal, even though that, it shows that line going up 33%?
Yeah, it says that it's combining, and there's no note there saying it's combining both lines.
I could say combining
Or
the exact amount
Yeah,
from
no
SAU.
increase.
removing $5,000, because that's the increase, right? Isn't it a $5,000
Yes.
increase?
Just something that captures that the
Sure.
amount isn't changing
I
that
can
we
do that.
spend on legal.
I can do that. Give me a second.
Thank you.
I can also give you the special ed numbers if you'd like.
Oh, sure, great, all right, let's write this down.
If you prefer me to put a board report, I can do that.
Well, maybe,
Why don't I do that?
Send it-
In the board report,
Yeah.
that way they'll publish
We'll have
it, which is what you were
Right.
looking for.
yes, thank you. I just want to make sure we have that, because I'd like to be able to answer all questions when people ask questions like, oh, how many students is each kid? Or good. I have a question about facilities salary and the increase. I understand we did increase the
Yep.
hourly rate,
I guess they're confused.
but is that what that's all about? The hourly rate?
Let me get to it. Give me just a sec. I do remember that, but I just gotta look at it to make sure.
It's a $33,000 increase.
So, let's see here.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah, I think that's.
Yes, so one full-time evening, 3 part-time evening, 1 part-time day, clean and maintain the building. So we've never been able to maintain our custodial staffing. And so we have in the past not budgeted the full amount. We are been much more successful at maintaining it. So I feel nervous not having it fully budgeted, just because I think we will actually hit. Now, what the thing you could do is say, we're not gonna bring it up to 18 to 20, you can keep it at 17 to 19. And I can adjust that.
All right, is this because we do not have right now currently 3 part-time evening custodians, but we have 2, and this is taking into consideration having the 3rd?
We've never had 3 real part-time. What we've always had is people that can do a few hours here, a few hours there. We piecemeal it together, but April right now is interviewing a person that we hope will resolve a lot of that issue for us. And we already have another person, but we did hire somebody recently that didn't work out, so it's still a little hit or miss with this, but our feeling is we're getting closer to getting to the target here. So one of the things I'm worried about, I mean, you can reduce that if you want, I'm just worried that if we don't have the full amount and I actually get to a full staff, that I'm gonna be going negative, so.
So we've always wanted 3. We might have taken the money out because we didn't have it filled. So you're not actually adding a position, it's,
There's no additional positions.
Okay.
That's why I listed them. I wanted to make sure you knew that I was not adding any positions. This is full-time evening, 3 part-time evening, 1 part-time day is in this line.
Right.
And part of that difference, obviously, I don't know how much, probably at least, $5,000-6,000 is because I'm going from 17-19 to 18-20. But we had talked last year that was our goal. We wanted to get up to 18. We were just taking it incrementally. So I did that, but I can easily roll that back.
I feel like this is what's actually finally getting people
To
to
apply.
apply.
This Howard, yeah.
Because we've been struggling with this ever since I came on the board.
Just remind me to bring up this during other,
Mhm.
okay, please, because it's a separate conversation.
And I did not add that to the driver, and I should have. I apologize. Oh, no, it is. Yeah, it's in salaries. Yes, it is added.
Okay,
to the
Justice
driver.
found a
Sorry,
big,
I
a
found
big
an
boo-boo.
hour.
I'll be fake.
Retirement payout at the bottom of the first page.
Hold
I
on,
think
hold on one sec.
because we have people change their mind and stay longer, we actually do have multiple. And it's a 0.
Where are we at?
The bottom of the first page.
Retirement
Oh, yeah.
payout.
Mine says classroom, so. First page. Oh, sorry.
I think we have 4.
Yeah.
So we might just,
Oh, so when I did this, which
Yeah.
was a month ago, there
Yeah.
wasn't anybody approved. You've since reversed that, so yeah, you're right. That's gonna have to be adjusted.
And we've
Reversed it
added,
and
yeah,
added
added
one
another
too.
one.
Yeah, so that's all new. So I didn't catch that we've
Yeah.
made that adjustment
So
since
there
then.
wipes out that 28.
Yeah, so I said hopefully there is the extra 20 years.
There is always the option, if this is really a concern, where you can pay July 1 of the following year. So in other words, you could kick this can down the road, put the retirement.
I
So
think-
once again,
I
I can
don't
easily
think we
adjust
should
it.
do that.
Okay, that's fine. So thank you,
Yeah.
good catch.
No, that's
So that's, I think we've got what? It's 3 teachers and 1 para, right?
Yes, yes.
3 to teach,
And,
para. Because, yeah, we had none for next year until recently.
so looking at building maintenance facilities, the actuals, I see 45,000.
Hold on. So it's building-
Okay, that's 26, 20, 54, 30, and this is the old budget, so I don't have to change.
Barry, go ahead. What do you got?
I'm just wondering, it's gone up like almost $15,000. I just wanted to check on that.
5430 what?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. No, it went up from the year before.
Right, but what's the last 3 numbers?
Oh, it was 001. I was looking at building maintenance. No,
No, that's level funded.
Oh, it's
001
level,
is level
okay,
funded,
sorry.
60/60. Yep.
Yep.
So there's no increase, no percent increase. And, when we look at the actuals, it says 45.7, but at the same time, we had some things that were, probably should have been in there versus other lines. So once again, it's still a matter of trying to fine tune where you're applying something. Like the heating plant is one that gets us every time. People like to put heating plant in here. So I've made it very clear, the heating plant is its own line. So anyway, so we're getting better at it. It's definitely a record-keeping piece.
my other question is, we did include money here for the dam.
Yes.
And we will tie this into when we have our conversation about our dam meeting today. It was really positive. So we'll talk about that here, but we do have $50,000,
60.
60, but isn't part of it, don't we need
No,
part of
what
it?
I'm saying right here, see, in parentheses, 60K is for the dam removal.
Okay.
The 750
Oh,
is
it's
for the
60,
regs and the
60.
4250.
Okay, so it's 60.
Yep.
So this is something we can reflect on, just put a star on it, because we're gonna talk about some things about the dam later on, and we can always come back and decide what we wanna do if we have to remove something, okay? Right, so. Alrighty, anybody else have questions about the new budget? I'm looking at the old one. Okay, that budget's scary.
Every budget moving forward will have a date on it. It'll be clear that it's a different one, so just, do what you gotta do to make sure you're looking at the right one.
And each time we get it, it will look different because we're gonna keep fine tuning it. We'll find little mistakes, or we'll find things that, you know what I mean? The numbers are updated. So we know we're gonna go, we will hopefully, did you say it wasn't until January we're gonna get the Co-Brown numbers?
No, I think November.
November. So probably maybe by our next meeting, we'll have the Co-Brown numbers, so that will be better.
Hopefully.
And then Melissa's gonna check on the 28,000. Rob's gonna work on the retirement number. What was the other thing we need more information on?
Oh, we just talked about legal fees, but we can
Legal fees,
just
right.
ponder that.
There was also that 3% coming out of both secretary lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got that one, right?
The what again?
3% coming out of both secretaries.
Do you want me to reduce those back?
For now, just so we're at a clean slate.
Yeah, no problem.
So hopefully then, when we have our next meeting, we'll have all those things taken care of, and we'll have a better view. And then we can still look through it and say, is there anything else we want to do, anything else we want to add? All right, and then we will, for that meeting in November, the second meeting, have that public hearing, and that will move forward with that $57,000.
If you have individual questions, please don't wait to meetings. You can send them to me. What I'm not supposed to do is discuss them with you. But at least if you ask a question, you see something, you say, hey, Rob, can you look into this? That's okay. I can come prepared to the meeting, and I think it'll streamline the Q&A. Like, I'll be able to give you an answer and not be like, I don't know, I'll get back to you next meeting, so.
Yeah, and since this is the first time we're seeing this copy, we may have missed,
Oh,
you know, when you
okay.
go home and you say, like, the couple of things that we caught, that happens. It's a process. All right, good. Well, good job. Good job, people, getting that down to where we're not
Something that doesn't give you a
all
stroke.
looking for new jobs. Or free job. All right. All righty.
Anything else? Let's see. Resignations, new hires. We did have a new hire, but we don't anymore. So I don't have anything for that one. Ongoing completed board meeting is in here.
Do you have that, you have in here the tax rates?
Yeah, that's coming up another.
Oh, it's in, oh, right, you said that. Okay.
So the ongoing task is what I'm up to. Let me see if I missed anything on this was printed. Yeah, we have the cost analysis for Paris done now. I didn't have it at the time of this, but I have it now.
We were gonna check.
Kevin. Okay, I'm sorry. Kevin did come out and look at both the water lean-to and the sugar shack. And he is putting something together for us so we can better understand the kind of ballpark costs of what those are gonna be. So I have that. The Minuteman invoice question, neither of us got to. She came to me this morning, she goes, what's that? I'm like, oh, I don't have time. We'll deal with it. So, sorry, I don't have the answer for that, but we'll definitely.
Oh, I thought I saw an answer.
Oh, did she give you
I
one?
thought I saw it in the supplemental packet.
No, it was in the was it in the manifest?
Oh, it might have been in the
Oh,
manifest.
okay, then
It is
she
in the
explained, okay,
manifest,
so she said, I told her never mind this morning because I was so overwhelmed with all the things that were going on today. She must have just decided to go solve it. So you got your explanation? Do you want to do the other people?
I'm
that see it?
pretty sure it said it was just an admin error.
Okay.
And a new check had been cut.
Perfect, so that one's done too. I have not had time to do the warrant article, that'll come soon. All right, so, and I know Jay's working on, well, we have the list of all apps now, but it's a matter of putting them together in a way that's user-friendly for parents, so it'll get there eventually.
Correspondence? Did we receive any correspondence? Everybody's happy.
We're
I
getting
think
close
so.
to the
So-
P card, by the way, fall of 2024.
We have to have our third audit. They're coming for a preliminary on November. It's the Friday before Thanksgiving. They're coming for a preliminary, and then that will drive when the actual is, but we're hoping for the first week or two of December. So we should, before Christmas, have the audit completed in our house.
Mhm.
How long it takes them to put it into a final report, I don't know. We can't apply for it until the final report.
Yeah.
So it could be January, February, but yes, we are
Yeah.
getting closer.
Getting close.
My credit card will feel relieved to not have to be swiped for so many things, but yeah.
Did you have a question?
Great, so as far as correspondence goes, I've had quite a few people ask me about, come talk to me about their elementary students' basically workload. And I have two completely different takeaways from both. Like half of the people are like, well, they're doing a lot and it's difficult for them, not necessarily a bad thing. And then the other half of the people are saying, my kid doesn't do anything effectively, not being challenged in the least. And, they have explained two very different course loads and experiences. So I don't know if that has something to do with the evaluation, mostly with regard to math. I don't know if that's based on the two different math curriculums or what they're.
It's hard for me to say, but I'll look into it. I'll look into it, because it definitely should be more, there should be consistency.
Yeah, because I know I've had some people say my kid brings home the same math worksheet, like an oral thing every day. And then other people are doing 3-digit addition and subtraction problems and word problems and all kinds of stuff. So
would be really helpful, and I thank you for bringing it to me, and I've got that down, and I'll definitely start talking to Natalie
And I
about it.
asked them to
Please contact Natalie.
contact people.
Contact Natalie. That's for the elementary. If it's middle school, then the middle school, then Jeff. But here's the thing, with a request like this, the problem is I don't know the
Yeah,
specifics.
there's
I'm
no
not-
specifics.
and you're, even if you did know it, we're not gonna say it here on
Exactly.
camera, so, once again. So my point being, I think, would be is anything you can do to try and persuade them to give Natalie a call or send her an email and provide as much specifics as possible. Nobody's getting in trouble. This is the ability of, we have a lot of young or inexperienced people that we have hired that potentially need some professional development, need a little better understanding. Maybe it is the new curriculums that are causing some people to not be quite where they should be. And once again, that's what this is all about. So if people, I want the public to know, if they call Natalie and say, hey, I've got this concern, I don't think my kid's getting enough work, or it's not consistent or whatever, Natalie's gonna go and talk to the teacher, not to look to get them into trouble, but to say, okay, how do we acknowledge this, and how do we try to address it and move forward in a positive way? And then Natalie can follow up with that parent. That's the other piece. I love closing loops. When somebody says, I've got a concern, I want somebody at the end of the day to be able to call and say, okay, we've addressed it, we believe this is gonna get better, but how about this? Let me know in a few days or next week, did it get better at home? From your perspective, has this improved? Without that feedback, it's hard for me to know, right? I'm not in the room actually assigning the work. So, even Natalie's not in the room assigning the work. So we really do need that feedback to say, okay, from the parent's perspective, did this improve or not? And that helps us.
And I think even better is to go to the teacher, because parent conferences are coming up.
I love that
And-
more. but
And I
yeah.
will say, because I've had similar interactions with people within the grade level who are saying, oh my gosh, the homework is overwhelming. It's overwhelming. There's so much that it is overwhelming. So you gotta talk to the teachers. You gotta talk to the teachers. Parent conferences are coming up. You talk to the teachers.
Yeah,
So-
they've literally gotten both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something seems less consistent.
Yep, and we'll
Once again,
definitely work
I
on
tell
those.
them,
Having twins in the school, I can say that things aren't, they don't see the same things, right? My head says, oh, they should be doing the exact same thing all the time, and it's not the case, which is fine,
But I do appreciate that, and I definitely love what you just said, Debbie. Obviously, the first round for anybody should be the teacher, but I do know a lot of people either are nervous about it, or they're afraid of, the teacher might retaliate, which I don't believe happens that nearly as often as we fear it does. But I get that. So if you can't go to the teacher, then by all means, go to Natalie. If you can go to the teacher, but maybe you don't feel like you're getting quite the response you were hoping for, then what I always suggest as a second step is rewrite that educator and CC Natalie. Because then what I find is that now they recognize, okay, I've ramped this up. I still want the teacher's response, but I've ramped it up just a little bit to make sure that other people are aware of it. Another resource that a lot of people don't tap into is school counselors. I think that sometimes that is a great resource for a parent to reach out to. It's kind of a neutral party. They're not administrator, they're not teacher. Well, they are on teacher's contract, but they're kind of a go-between, and they can sometimes go in and handle a situation in a less boss employee situation type scenario. So that's another resource I do recommend people reach out to, touch base with the counselor. Say, I'm having this problem, can you help me out with this? And I bet the counselors will help you out.
And during parent conferences, you can always ask for ways to challenge your child. Like, what else can we do? Is there anything the school can do? Anything we can do? Or my child needs more help. What else can the school do to support my child? I mean, that's what I would do, what I plan to do.
so there's people actually listening.
Oh, they're listening, they're
But I do
listening.
want to assure you, I will definitely be sitting down with Natalie when she's back and talking to her about this concern. And she may already have some insights to it. She may already have some explanations for it. So I'll definitely touch base with her.
And I just want to say too, as far as my experience, I want to give the middle school teachers a lot of praise for offering extra help and keeping kids after school, using their own time to help kids that are struggling with something. So I just want to say that. Okay. Alrighty. Community calendar.
We'll figure something out.
Okay.
Well,
it might
it's
be
only been a
better
week
with
or two.
Well, I think our next meeting is the 13th, is that right? That's right
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Is that right?
Maybe to also remind people, which I'm sure they've heard a million times, that the school is going to be closed on election day? Because this will go out. Oh, did you already send that?
Already-
Oh, that one
Yeah,
already
that
went
one
out.
already went out, okay.
Yeah.
It's also in the newsletter every
Yeah,
week.
right.
We put all of our upcoming
Um,
closures.
we put the tax rate in the budget season process, or, we always touched on the budget season.
Okay, the budget process is a good thing, right, that we're working on the budget
Yeah.
right now.
I think I mentioned that we were just starting it last, in our last letter.
Take a plan to see some increases.
Are we,
Sorry, I'm sorry, you're bending.
not involved in the calendar, but are we ready to start advertising something for our playground fund drive?
It got backburner because of the board. It's on my list. I'll
Yeah,
make sure.
I
We would
did
like
ask,
to, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to break the news if Rob wasn't ready to let it,
The budget was.
have it worded yet, so.
Between the budget and all the other stuff that we've had going on, it's just, I haven't even had time to think playground. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's very low on my priority list, and I can't wait for somebody to say, I'm gonna spearhead this campaign, because I will turn it over in an instant. But yes, I do need to get that out. You're right. It's been a whole meeting since we had the conversation.
More
So,
concerned about this, obviously, but
yeah, no, I'm with you. And it needs to get announced because we want to start that fundraising. I know the PTO already knows about it. I know actually everybody in the building knows about it, so it's probably out there, but I need to put something official out, so I just added it. I will get that sent
So,
ASAP.
right, so other than, Eric, you wanted, the policy committee wanted us to review the board goal, policy, but Rob wants us to immediately approve DAF because that's something that we are not in compliance with. Is
Yes.
that true?
Yeah, so we had a day one of our audit process, and she immediately identified that the DAF we were using is out of date, that a new version had come out since last year when we last updated this. And if you look at the policy that I put into your packets, it's highlighted, and there's a lot of new stuff.
All the
But-
changes.
Yeah, so when I look at it though, and I was reading through it, none of it really was anything that would cause me concern. It's all normal purchasing, procurement. The thing that they were most concerned about, I'm trying to remember which one it was. Do you remember what it was? She was most concerned that this language wasn't in there.
The one about using US goods.
Yes,
Giving preference
yes,
to
yes,
US
yes, yes,
goods.
yes. Even though I told her, I said, it's our preference to use local goods,
Right.
let alone US goods, but she said it had to be in here and it wasn't. And sure enough, it wasn't, because the last version of this didn't have it. They also want the conflict of interest and mandatory disclosure piece in there, so we put that in as well. Well, I put everything in. This is completely aligned with New Hampshire School Board Association at this time. Took a while to go through this entire policy and do the line outs and highlights, but they're there.
I did read all the highlights and I did not find anything that really struck me as not something that would be in there.
Right.
On page 57, on the top right, page 57, down on number 10,
Lieutenant, go for it.
I wasn't sure if that was an error in the case of personal services, and then personnel was mentioned 2 or 3 times after that. I didn't know if that should be personnel. I didn't quite understand the context of everything there, but.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be. I copied and pasted, so I'm assuming it must be wrong in theirs, but yeah, it has to be. You look at that, the whole thing's about talking about personnel services, right? Yeah, and it's all about them accounting for what they've done related to the grant. Like, we have to do time and effort sheets and things like that, so, yeah, I'd say personnel. So I will get that fixed for you. Good catch. I
And,
didn't see that.
Attention to detail.
and this, doing this would eliminate an audit finding?
Yes, so if we don't update this, I will get an audit finding, which isn't a killer. I just don't want one I don't need to have. So they're coming back in, I think it's November? No, the end of October. Yeah.
We can have.
So if you approve this right now, then I will be able to put this in their hands, and they've already been clear. If that's in there, the audit finding goes away. So that's the only reason I was asking if we could do the kind of first, second expedited process tonight, especially where it's not like it's controversial language, it's all financial language. And it's stuff that's come down from the feds to the state that the School Board Association put into a policy. So,
Personally, I'm good with it. Like you just said, typically we've done this one 2 or 3 times now, I think, in the last few years, and it never brought up any discussion points on it.
except for the $10,000, which is still in there.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
that's
we
right,
talked
that's
about
right.
changing that, I thought that came up at one point about changing that amount because the cost of things had gone up.
I would love to, but at the time we had that discussion, there was no motion made, so.
I think we should just accept this as is for right now, and then if we want to tweak the 10,000,
And that's something that we said that's not a recommended.
It's $250,000 for the feds.
Yeah, that's right. And that's right, this is all federal funds. This is not,
Right, and this all follows all
Right.
federal
Right.
micro purchase,
Right.
all of the stuff. This is all exactly,
that you're familiar with.
So-
yes,
so we can,
it's verbatim.
just make a motion to
Obviously, it's
accept it,
ours.
adopt it, and not go through first and second.
Yep.
reading. We can do that, only because we're out of compliance without it.
I move, excuse me. I move we accept policy DAF, Administration of Federal Grants, as presented in our packet tonight with the updates since last year, so that we may be brought back into compliance with federal requirements.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, and then the only thing we saw should be personnel on that one page, correct?
Yep.
Right.
And just like has already been explained, we're doing this faster than usual without our first and second reading because we want to be in compliance for our audit.
Alrighty,
But it's nice to know that it was a great catch that you had there.
yes.
There's a school board policy that needs to have a correction. And you get to share it
This
with
is why he's on the policy committee.
We'll go
yes.
with that.
That and don't take away board authority are the two things to look for. Okay, Katrina, Eric,
Yes,
Jess? Yes? Okay, Kyle
Yes.
and Debbie, yes. Alrighty, so, and that other policy you want us to BHE, we're reading for homework?
B,
The one about, what's the one about the
The
goals?
BA,
Oh, okay.
BA and the BA TAC are, those
Okay.
were included for homework.
All right, so we're just going to look through that because, just read through it yourself for the BA and BAR because it's not something we've actually been doing it in this way. We've been doing it in a formal goal-making session and review at our annual goal-making meeting, so it's a little.
Can we can
I think
do,
this is great.
we can do first reading on JEBA,
Okay,
I believe.
okay.
Not BHE?
No, that was one
Okay.
right back to tomorrow.
Okay, gotcha. All right, perfect.
So this is the age of entrance to kindergarten. One is a lot of spots replacing, submitting it to the principal. Instead it says to the school administrative office instead of submitting the request to the principal.
Okay, what page are we on?
I was gonna say, where is it?
76.
Thank you.
76.
Yeah, that other one was very long.
Okay, so page 76.
And then the other thing that we had gone back and forth about, and right now we have it striked out, but, so it says that the administration is supposed to report the number of students that have been accepted for early entrance, but it's not like it's not like a drastic number every year. It's not like we're taking on 10 kids every year or something. It's
At
just,
the most, it's been one.
Why
It's
do
down
we-
to the volume.
why do we strike it?
Because it doesn't make any sense.
so when
I've
we can
never,
have
I've never
discussion-
done it.
Okay.
So that was, it was one of those things, it's kind of like that other policy I'm asking you to look at, we don't do it.
Okay.
So do you want that line in there?
I mean,
Okay,
the numbers, like, I don't think technically the number 7 is supposed to be striked out.
Well, no, because
I
it
think
becomes
it's-
6.
It
Oh, okay.
becomes-
That's what I looked at.
Okay,
I
yeah.
looked at that and that's what I thought. I was looking at it going, wait a minute,
Okay.
it becomes 6.
Okay, so we're just removed, basically we removed of the principal and said school administrative office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if we were gonna, if all of a sudden a bunch of people wanted to get their kids in early, I think it would come up in conversation. I think Rob would let us know.
Yeah.
Right.
Just so you know, this was requested by the K teachers and last year's administration to review this, and it's just finally gotten around to it. So this was a request to review to make sure that this was still what the board wanted.
Yes.
for the nitpick. You say school administrative office, and then you say the building administration. Why wouldn't we just continue with the administrative, or the school administration?
I don't know. You wanted to mix it up a little bit.
Commonality of language.
Well, so I think,
I thought there was a little discussion of this because,
oh,
or was there not?
no, I see,
Go.
because it's like, the request has to be the administrative office, so like I get that, because it's like sending it to, I guess, the admins and stuff.
It's going to the admin assistants. If you say the administrative office, that means that Jess could decide. So I
Okay.
think that's why it's saying building administration at that point. It's
It-
being more-
I also,
being more
It is,
specific.
and that's
okay.
like,
I-
it's
That makes
essentially the
sense.
DMs,
Yes, that
but
makes
that's our current model,
Right.
but
We
it
don't know.
allows for flexibility.
But also, none of these requests ever went to the building principal. They went to the administrative assistant, who then brought them down to the kindergarten teachers, who then have that as part of their consideration, as part of the process. The only time it got to the building principal was if it got past the K process. So once again, I just think this is cleaning it up, saying, look, really, where's it going? It's going to the admin office. They're gonna take care of it.
Yes.
But ultimately, if it needs to have a decision made, then it's gonna be the building administrator in that, so in this case, Natalie, that would make a decision. And if they're unhappy, then they can appeal it. And we kept the appeal process all the way through you guys.
which I thought I thought that's why we did building, because
Yeah.
School administrative offices. Oh, no, I thought it was specifically building because
All right, so
you and the SAU.
you know, what, we probably should have made the motion to accept it as first reading and then have the discussion, but, all right, so why don't we just make a motion to somebody?
I move we accept policy JEBA, age of entrance for kindergarten, for a first reading.
Okay, do you have a
I
second?
was second,
All right, discussion.
okay, copy and paste everything we just said.
Yeah, okay, so we understand why the changes were made and they make sense, right? Do you have anything else? Okay. All right, so accepted for first reading. Eric?
Yes.
Jess? Yes. Katrina?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
And Debbie, yes. All right. Oh, now we have all those committees. Oh, facilities, you are still gonna be on.
Oh,
Nice. What was
I
it?
look at it in my office.
Alright.
It's on my desk. It's an envelope, sealed envelope. Can you skip this one?
Yes.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
okay. We'll,
All the things-
you have enough, I'm so glad.
There's only one.
You should put like, 500,000. Okay, I'm sorry.
So I think it's right to the, like, if you're looking at my computer, it's right to the right on my keyboard. Kind of like, but
And is it like?
it's the only envelope. No, it's just a, like
Regular
a
letter
post,
envelope?
yeah, letter envelope.
Okay, food service committee, Katrina and I met with, and Rob met with, Chris Farrell. And what is the?
Farrell.
Farrow or Farrow?
Arrow,
Farrow. And what's the woman's name again?
Cara, and I don't remember her last name.
Karen. And we just went over the menus, we inspected the freezers, we inspected the refrigerator, we inspected the storage room, the kitchen, everything looks good, much different than I think a year ago.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, you open up the fridge and it's just like fresh fruits and veggies all prepped and.
There's a big difference and the menu seems to reflect it. They did, one thing that they were talking about at the menu, they've gone totally to sun butter rather than peanut butter. Part of it was the peanut butter they want to order, it's hard to get without the hydrogenated oils in it. And the nurse would prefer not to have peanut butter in the building because of peanut allergies. So at this point, they've only had a couple of complaints, so they're gonna just monitor that. What else, Katrina?
We talked about like equipment needs. Again, they'd like to upgrade the salad bar. We didn't get the grant that Rob had applied for last year, so we'll continue to apply for that this year. The salad bar would be one that can be plugged in and allow for more assortment rather than just the few large, containers of things. So that's on the radar. There's a little bit of concern about like when our water quality right now, it's safe, but concern about it
It's
the
way it
equipment,
looks,
right?
yeah.
And the new dishwasher. And so they're they're researching
Right.
how they can make sure that it doesn't damage the new dishwasher while we're going through this kind of period.
There is some type of product you can use in your dishwasher that sort of eliminates some of the buildup, like lime and different things that you run it through your
Which
dishwasher.
they are currently using, but it's not necessary. They were gonna see if there's something else they can do for our specific issue of like the
Manganese, they're trying to get rid of the manganese.
The chemical they're using isn't breaking it down, so the scum layer has to be manually removed. So what they're hoping for is a new chemical that breaks down manganese.
Yeah.
They're gonna look into it.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, I think it was
It's much better.
Yeah, short and sweet. There
Much
wasn't
better.
any,
Watching the
concerns that we
soccer
had to
game.
bring forward. So yeah, we've been
We had a
outside.
field trip and we sat on the picnic table so we can also watch some soccer game. It was a different time, but
All right, do we have anything else from the committee?
I think it's good.
Yeah, okay. Education committee.
Yeah, so we had like the dean's meeting this past Wednesday. Similar, I guess. Sorry, I was like a fly or something. Similar things that we've talked about in the past. How there's a lot of like dual credit classes that they're always adding to that. It's a great opportunity for our students. One of the things that we talked about bridges a lot, and all of the deans there are super supportive of it, and they enjoy it, and they like it, and they like being able to. So they're thankful, when we're able to support them participating in those. I think the only one that hadn't happened yet, but was I think scheduled for like this week, was math. We talked about one of the things we brought up was AI, and I assumed at the high school level is where they would be seeing that more, and it is, but they said that because so many of their assignments are submitted via Google Classroom, that it makes it much easier for them to detect them, and that's how they handle it to make
You just
sure.
run it through and see.
Well, yes, there's obviously software that detects it, but the other thing is you can actually, I guess, go back in Google Classroom and you can actually replay them, like writing the paper, so you can see them typing, or if everything was just like copied and pasted in. They said the teachers say they get to know their students and they can really tell if it's their student talking or not. But we also went into that it's ultimately something that's not going away, and then how do you actually learn to incorporate it and teach people to use it as a tool properly and integrate it into your curriculum. So the technology department is actually working on that. And so I assume at some point it'll be something that ends up becoming a conversation at this level too, maybe even be a conversation already at the middle school level with students. But yeah, so just something where I don't know if at some point we have to include that in any sort of policies or whatever, that you can't write your school papers with AI, but that was a kind of a big topic, but it was good. I will forward, I had forgot to, I'll forward all the dean's reports, and it just talks about the different curriculum that they're, changes, improvements, and all that good
Did
stuff.
they talk about what they're doing with kids? They used to have, what was it called? Oh gosh, it was a special study hall that it was not for identified students, especially used by freshmen, especially freshman boys. Help them organize with their study skills and organize their time because of the just change and having all those classes and the additional work.
No, I don't think so.
Assisted study it was called. Did they talk
Yeah.
about that?
No, we didn't talk about that. I feel like they had touched upon some of those things maybe when we were there for our board meeting. And that would be a good thing that we could always touch upon when we do go. But no, we didn't talk about that. Each dean just mostly talked about what's going on in their curriculum that they're doing.
That's the running joke
That was actually the last dean's meeting.
every year.
Yeah.
14 years.
Yeah. Well, they got it finally. So yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's also a wish list, so they're coming in front of the education committee that makes the decisions to purchase some things. So they present what's going on in their different department, and then they talk about, the new things and things that they would like. And there was a need for another bathroom, and was never given to them. Now they finally got it. Okay, good for them. Yep. All right. All right, you want to go back to the facilities? Yep.
So, I'll give this to you folks. We put out a bid process. I personally contacted at least a dozen companies. I spoke to people in our parent pickup line that had construction-related signage on the side of their vehicles, and many of them said, yes, I'll pass the word, I know exactly who to give this to. I reached out to a family member of mine who's in the electrician world, and he spread it to a bunch of northern Mass, southern New Hampshire companies that he knew of. I don't know why we only have one quote. We actually had multiple people come out and take a look. I actually did the walkthrough with one of them. I learned a lot about our electrical system. I guess it is a very unique system. It is a single, correct, who's the electric, you're the electrician.
I'm not,
I thought you were-
I'm a mechanical engineer.
You're a mechanical,
And I
I'm
work in
sorry,
the
okay.
electrical industry,
Okay,
so.
okay, well, correct me if I say something stupid here. Something about us all being on a single phase, does
Yep.
that sound right? Which I guess is unusual for this size facility. And even our pole has to do unique things to get it to single phase when it comes into the building. I guess our panel is absolutely gargantuan for what you would expect to see. So I heard all this stuff as we were coming through, but the company I was with was very excited about the job, and this very well may could be them. They don't have their company name on the outside, so I don't know. But once again, long story short, we had a lot of interest. We just only received one quote back, but this is once again all we need to get the ball rolling. We just need a number that I can then go to the chief
Right,
and
for the grant.
talk about getting the
Okay,
grant
let's
application.
open it up. Drum roll. Or what?
You open it up and it says, no,
I didn't really
we're not
feel
actually that
that you really
interested.
wanted to do it.
No worries.
All right.
Thank you for the invite.
Thanks for the invite, but
So this is Lavin Sun Electrical.
that's the one I met with.
Quote overview. I'll just start reading stuff. Please see the following proposal for your consideration at this facility and let us know if you have questions. They go into the scope of civil work, providing excavation, concrete pad, generator offloading, crane for generator set, all kinds of other stuff. They are service disconnect. The generator looks like they're doing 1,000 amp transfer switch, 2-pole, single phase. Quantity: 1 Generac industrial diesel engine driven generator set with turbocharged aftercooled 6-cylinder 10.3 liter engine consisting of the following features: 300 kilowatt rating, stationary emergency standby rated, wired for 120/240 3-phase, permanent magnet, excitation. I'm not going to get into the details.
What's the bottom line?
$279,000, 852, 279,852.
So how, I just because I don't remember the RFP, would that run the whole school or just that run the whole school?
So there's really no way to say, oh, well, what's an emergency going to look like versus just a normal power outage during the school day. The building's, like I said, we're on this
Certainly.
gargantuan panel. So what we aren't necessarily going to be able to do with this generator is power the annex, things like that, because we're not even positive how those lines are all connected, but they have their own meters. So we do not believe, without diving into all the diagrams and everything else, because those buildings all on that one side of the building have their own meters, they believe that they're all on their own power sources and are not connected to this building. So those buildings would not operate, but then again, we don't need them to.
Do we still have two? We still have 2-wheel generators.
We do
right?
have the 2 portable generators that we would be able to utilize for other purposes if we wish to do so. And the SAU is on its own generator.
Does the pump house?
The pump house has an actual diesel motor to run the
It
pump.
does.
Okay.
And he said, if you want, we can make a point of doing it, but he says, I don't see a reason for it because it's got its own.
Okay.
Um,
Where would they store this diesel fuel?
it goes with the machine. So that was one of the big questions we talked about. Could they tap into the propane source? He said, number one, it's a really long distance. Number two, it doesn't make financial economic sense. He said this kind of generator really, you do want to be looking at diesel, not at the propane. So then he talked about the site. We actually went out and stood on the site. We talked about the site. They would actually clear it. They would concrete pad it. And it's a certain number of gallon tank that's it's integral to it.
That's the base thing.
Yeah.
Basically.
And he said it can't be larger than the one that he's quoting us for, because if it does, it requires special permits. So he said that should carry us for a couple of days. He said his biggest concern for us is how do we get diesel delivered to that tank? But I did mention to him that the town fills up our diesel for our emergency generator out in the fire pump house. So I'm assuming we could work out an arrangement with them to refill it from time to time, because we'll have to probably do an emergency run from time to time, not emergency, a maintenance run from time to time, which will burn fuel slowly over time.
Okay, so now this is going to go to the fire chief?
So what I will do is call the fire chief and say, I finally got the quote. Well, not finally, I mean, we got the quote, now what? He said before he could do anything, he needed a quote. So if you're okay with this, I will bring this to him.
Without having the RFP in front of me, I just want to I'll make this motion subject to you reviewing the RFP and making sure everything that was supposed to be there is included. Now, Katrina, it says stuff about three-phase. We don't have.
He said the generator, I'm trying to remember exactly how I said it, it's a transfer system. So it does what it needs to do to make it fit into our building.
Okay.
Yeah, and that might just be a typo because it says 12240 volts, and this is 3-phase. So, yeah, I wouldn't have concern with it.
Okay.
Where would it actually be placed?
You know where the pole is? So you got the horseshoe out in front of the building.
Right.
To the right of the horseshoe, there's a big pole that leans because it's under so much weight, because it's single phase. It would go there, and so whether that pole, it would be integrated into that pole and everything else.
Is that the pole that's by the dumpsters?
No. So horseshoe, like you're standing out in front of our building looking at the main road.
Yep.
The horseshoe's in front of you, go to the right. So you're going like you're going to exit that horseshoe.
Yep.
On the right-hand side of that horseshoe, there's a big pole that goes way up in the air, and it's because it's under a lot of weight.
So it's near the road?
It's not. It's near the top of the horseshoe. It's closer to the building than the road. But there's a big space right there that they would have to level. They'd have to do landscaping for and everything else.
On
And
the
then they would.
grass? So in the middle of the grass, like near the flagpole?
No. Walk out there.
This sounds like it's closer
It's to the right
to
of
the
the
three
horseshoe.
guest parking spaces and the bench,
Okay.
Yeah.
the bench that's out there.
The bench over?
The bench isn't going to be in the way. It's there's a memorial out there. It's not in the way. It's further over.
Oh, okay.
Do they build like something
They
around
would.
it? Or-
Yeah, I told him. I
There's a
said
fencing, 8-foot fence,
Yeah.
chain fence.
I was very clear with them. I said it can't be accessible by anybody, and I said I want it to look as neat as you possibly can. So I haven't seen the quotes. I don't know. You said it was
What
chain
does it
link.
say about the
It's
chain link?
power.
Oh, chain
No,
link.
but you could always say we want a different kind of fence. This is
Could-
Cedar, something.
Or even,
Chain?
even black chain link looks better than regular chain link.
Yeah.
once again, this is his
We
shot
could-
at
we could
getting it right.
plant Things in front of it. Right?
That wasn't part of the RFP.
No, I'm just thinking for us in the
No.
future.
I'm saying the fencing wasn't part of, specifying the fencing wasn't part of the RFP.
Was that the only available place on property?
It's where the power comes into our building,
Uh-huh.
and as a result, it makes the lowest cost. If you put it somewhere else, you're gonna have to run new power lines.
Okay.
So where he's talking about putting it, I don't think it'd be that noticeable. I mean, I don't like the chain link either. I think it's gotta be something that's not, you can't see through. But it's right next to that pole. It's behind a bunch of shrubs. I don't know how tall I don't know if it's taller than me. I don't know. But he said it's 8-foot fencing, so that's taller than me.
I would imagine the windows are all gonna be closed, so nobody is breathing the diesel fuel.
It's
as
only
it's
running in an
fumes.
emergency.
Well, if there are people are in the building.
But you'd have to, the cost would go up because if you move it somewhere else, it's not. So basically what's gonna happen is that transfer thing is gonna take pole's power. It's
Mhm.
gonna come into it, and then it goes through the same line that goes to the building. So everything's all, it can use what's already there. He was actually kind of excited when he got out there. He's like, oh, this this actually makes this a lot easier.
I'll take a look at where the proposal
Yeah,
is.
what is these, did anybody read about the yellow bollards?
Yeah, that's like,
They
so
have
someone
to
can't
have
So they
smash
can't
into
run
it.
their vehicle into it.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yep.
I think they have to.
They put them in front of like bank doors and things like that.
Oh, I see, I see.
I don't think
Chain link fence.
Oftentimes,
Air quality study and permitting for generator, that's what the air quality, you know, if you had a generator, what it smells like.
a lot of times it'll exhaust.
Yeah.
To the air, or whatever. It won't be like.
Okay, alright.
I haven't, but I will.
Okay. All right, so, we want to then make your motion to approve this, making sure that Rob checks the RFP.
I move we authorize Rob to continue pursuing the arrangement with the fire department to pursue the grant for this generator. Pursuant to him, contingent upon him looking at the RFP and making sure everything is what we exactly were looking for.
Okay, do we have a second? Do we have a second? Okay, discussion?
Do you want me to ask him if he can change it slightly to include a solid fence as opposed to a chain link? No, just leave it for now?
Okay, Katrina?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes,
Jess?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yeah.
And me, yes. Alrighty, we finished education committee, Jim?
here's the envelope, Rob.
Katrina, right? Alright, so wellness committee, Rob and I were at the wellness committee today, meeting, and went really well. We just basically talked about reminding parents again, we're gonna, have Natalie put something, I think, in the newsletter to remind people about the birthday parties and options that you could send. Just give people ideas about what you could send in for birthday parties. Nicole was going to put like a blurb out about the 4 holidays that you can have the exceptions for all staff to know.
Because that's by grade level, right? I think
They decide, I guess.
by grade level.
Yeah, because they get to have 4 free parties or whatever. And so Nicole was gonna organize that and send it out to staff. We talked about, asking staff, like from, with part of the policy is about movement and making sure like kids have movement breaks and things during the day. So, maybe asking staff to share like some of their favorite activities that they do to get kids to get out of their seats in between, activities. What else we talked about?
So nuts and bolts stuff, Anna Goot is going to be the
Oh, you have that,
chairperson.
yeah.
I don't have it in front of me, I'm just remembering from
Okay,
memory here. Anna Goot's gonna be the chairperson of the committee. Natalie, Jeff, and I will each attend one meeting. There's 3 meetings a year, we'll each attend one. We introduced all the new members because over half the people were new to the committee. Seemed pretty, lighthearted and good-spirited. I think a big part of what we talked about was really just improving our communication to make sure that everybody's parents, staff, students all remember what's in it. So just making sure that we're looking at the newsletter, looking at professional development opportunities, things like that, just to kind of reemphasize. We also talked about creating a standardized reminder bulleted list that would go out every year and just linking that right in so that every year Christmas in September is kind of a reminder to everybody. So yeah, I think it was a good meeting. It was pretty quick, and like I said, pretty light.
We're gonna do another survey again, second annual survey, and then next year
A 3-year evaluation.
we'll do a 3-year evaluation, which is basically just looking to see are we all in compliance with the policy.
I just thought of this, is the policy mentioned in the student handbook at all?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah. It's part of the staff and student.
all right,
There is a link there for these smart snacks, USDA smart snacks, so we just asked get a list of them to give people ideas, instead of just saying, here's a link.
Yeah, I know, I feel like the link isn't super user friendly when I've gone to it before.
So it was good. We just-
Is the wellness policies, does it have is it just after 3 years that you reevaluate? I thought that there was almost annual
Yeah, we're
survey.
gonna do an
feedback.
annual survey.
Okay.
We're gonna do another survey in the spring. We have 2 meetings. We have one scheduled for January
January and April.
and April, and then, was it April when we're gonna do the survey?
Well, where you'll finalize it and set the
No,
schedule for it.
we're gonna finalize the survey in April.
The survey is an annual event, just to kind of give you that quick feedback. The evaluation is once every 3 years. You're supposed to take a, kind of like look at New Hampshire School Board Association, whatever, and really analyze whether or not your policy is still aligned with best practice, things like that. You can obviously, and we talked about this, we'll obviously use the survey results as well as we're looking through. But it's really that opportunity once every 3 years just to make sure it doesn't drop off people's radar, and you remember to make sure your policy's fresh.
And we're also talking about like fundraising activities, that they,
Food fundraisers.
if it's a food fundraiser, it needs to follow the policy. So at this point, like if somebody wanted to sell bottles of soda, that does not follow the policy. I know the PTO is doing a pizza, but it's also like a take-home kit, from what I understand.
Yeah, they're not cooking any here, so I kind of feel like, but they also did get it pre-approved, which the policy says they're supposed to do,
Right.
so.
So it's,
We'll,
I
it's
know,
part of
that's one of the
that communication piece.
things where, it's like, that's where when we went through this whole process with the wellness policy, where it's like, I was like very worried about it overstepping, right? Like stopping, like really, we're gonna stop the PTO from selling take-home pizza kits, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like, I understand we don't wanna eat cupcakes every single day in
right,
class,
that's what
but,
we talked about.
but it's sort of like making sure we're not like overstepping the
Yeah.
intention of it.
That it's an actual, I mean, the policy is not really our policy, it's the school board association policy, other than we tweaked it by giving the 4 holidays that people could choose. We made it actually less stringent. I didn't make it, the last committee did. And then we brought it to the board, everybody wanted it to be.
Nobody in that room felt that we're onerous or stressed out or
Right.
anything else. I think it really just came down to, it drops off people's radar. You know, what we had last year happen was a parent sent some cupcakes in for a birthday party, and we had to send them back home. And that parent got very irate with us. They were like, I can't believe I did this. My kid was so excited about it. You ruined their birthday. They cried. And a big part of it was, when was the last time we announced it?
Nobody
When we
knew.
looked, it hadn't been in there in a while. So that was a big part of what we were talking about today. We just gotta, you gotta have something in there that brings it back to people's front and center. Otherwise, we're gonna have this situation happen again. So
What if-
Something else.
So what if a child's birthday falls on one of the 4 days?
sure, but that's not what happened. It was
No, I'm just wondering.
a kid's birthday. Nothing
For future reference.
nothing was planned by the teacher. Nothing was planned by the teacher. They just sent it in. So
I
yes,
get a
one
refresh.
of the 4 things that a teacher could do is say, we're gonna celebrate everybody's birthday on this particular day, or we're gonna do one in the fall and one in the spring. So they could do that if they wanted to. That's one of the options that they have. But once again, this one was just an unplanned event.
Yeah, that's just unfortunate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was unfortunate, and the kid was upset. I actually met with the kid was upset, and the parent was upset, so.
We also talked about, this is not about policing what a child brings in from home, that is up to their parents. However,
Yeah.
one person did bring up that a student came into their classroom with an energy drink, and she wanted to know if that was okay. And we can't control what people bring in, but the energy drink things, we're looking to see, like, because there could be a safety issue with too many of them with with young children. So we're just
I mean, I
looking to
had one of my kids came home and said, and I didn't dig into it,
Right.
but that they were told that they're not allowed to bring soda to school to drink.
Right.
And then my other kid was like, well, they can't tell us what to do, but
Yeah.
but I didn't dig into it, but I just, again, I think it all comes down to education.
Right.
And just how it's implemented, that, yeah, I mean, obviously we want to promote healthy options.
And it's
but-
not about the soda, it was about the actual energy
Oh, no, for
drinks
sure.
that have so much caffeine in it that, like, if the kids are drinking a lot of it, could actually have a health issue, you know?
Well, we had 2 levels. That was one level. The other level was just the mess that these types of drinks create in your classroom. And so one of the things we had talked about was, should we potentially be thinking only water in the classroom, you know?
Yeah, or
So
at your desk.
Yeah,
Or
right,
definitely do not share your energy drinks with other children, because if any of you know the younger kids, they share everything.
We wanted to talk about the gum.
Yeah, the gum and the whatever, okay. All right, so that's that. Okay, transportation committee, okay. Athletic update, nothing other than we're meeting tomorrow, so we're moving on, finishing the evaluation for the end of the season, then moving on to the basketball season. We're still looking for, it should be posted, the basketball coaches and assistants. New Hampshire School Board Association,
So there was a really interesting presentation put on by this year's School Board of the Year. And the key takeaways from it, I mean, they're going to make it available on the internet, but key takeaways of it for me were a really solid plan for future, facilities improvements, which we're doing a little bit of that with our reserve fund. Community engagement was said, I think, probably a million times during her 30 or 40-minute presentation. I don't think that they could do a lot of the things that they do without being situated where they are. They have access to a lot of.
Who was
It was
Ringe?
Ringe, Jaffrey Ringe School Board. They're situated between two local colleges that are very close to them, and they get a lot of support from those places. However, once again, community engagement, and community support were absolutely critical in them getting the School Board of the Year. And apparently they've got a really strong, like the Rotary Club helps out, and their PTO is massive, and a lot of things that I think our school board could attempt to promote. I know our PTO participation right now, we've got 4 or 5 people that work really hard, and there's no one else. I'm not sure how we go about promoting that more, but it's probably worth a look because we don't have a lot at the moment. And as far as the amendments, pretty much everything didn't go the way that we had voted. So the email was sent out, and a lot of them were not even brought for consideration.
Okay.
So not really anything to talk about there.
How was your lunch?
Lunch.
Did you have lunch?
Yeah.
Did you get lunch?
They had breakfast poo-poos and like lunch break poo-poos and or appetizer kind of hummus tray.
Oh, yummy.
Yeah. So
Better than hummus when you're
I was
Can't wait to go
hungry.
back next year. I guess my question is, I'm just curious about is it something that moving forward we want to consider our participation in, or I don't know what we get from attending this as a board.
Yeah, so 51 out of the 160 school districts or school boards sent their representatives, which,
Wow.
those odds are pretty good if you are considering you're voting on amendments.
Right. Well, I think it's up to people who want to go. I mean, like if you're going to stay on the committee and you want to go again next year, if we can't find people that want to be on that committee, then we don't send anyone. I know
Okay.
Bruce was here for 30 years. He loved it and he went every year. Every year, looked forward to it.
Maybe they serve food back then.
Yeah, that's what I was asking about lunch. Do they have not left lunch when you were there?
Like cheese and crackers and dip
I remember,
and then muffins
maybe it
and
was a new board member thing they used to do. That was a long time ago. They had a really nice lunch.
during
I just
COVID, they
hate-
went everything is now Zoom meeting. I don't think they do in-person
We
stuff.
had a nice lunch with the people.
Um,
Did you stay for lunch?
I think for lunch, I'll try that.
One of the better things that comes out of that, aside from, it's your only chance to advocate for things you want to change statewide, would be networking, which if you all haven't noticed, I'm great at. So,
Did you make friends?
yeah, I talked to the guy that sat next to me.
That's what I do at conferences.
So, there's probably an opportunity there for some networking and some good learning. I have some growing to do to accomplish that goal, and I'm not sure that it's gonna be a steep learning curve, but
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
going.
Thanks for taking your
Yeah,
Saturday.
because it is a Saturday
it
and
was
I
a
know.
beautiful Saturday.
Oh, and you're inside.
Debbie, it would be like you taking a beach day in the
No,
summer.
it was the beach.
It wasn't a shame. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you for going. We can talk about our beach day today at the dam. It was so sunny out. It was incredibly warm, wasn't it?
Damn wonderful trip.
It was- Yes, so, okay, the gate was locked. We don't know how.
Debbie.
Rob is thinking that I did it somehow, and I don't know how that could have been. Maybe, why did Kevin do it? He wasn't even there. I gave you the key back.
Tell them,
I've
Debbie.
been
I haven't
there
been
as
out
long
there
as
since
you
you guys were out there, so
Anyway,
somebody closed it.
Somebody locked the gate, so we were all wearing our special clothes, walking through that. Anyway, so we had, what were they, like 12 people again from the committee?
Around there.
The engineers were there. I will say that our engineers did a wonderful job. They did a wonderful job. We walked, over the whole dam to where the structure is that we're gonna be removing. And they gave us a very clear picture of what things will look like, what they were going to do. And Bob had actually put like a log across to show where the 100 feet were, where that's the part we're going to remove, so we could visualize that. And about the difference, I didn't really understand all of this, but there are stream channels that feed into that pond. So we like just sort of showing like what's gonna happen, what they're going to do, like when they remove that cement structure, whatever that's called, intake, where then it flows into the other stream that remember we talked about flows into the river that. And he really did a wonderful job with explaining why we wanted to only go to 100 feet, as far as being able to bring like a van if we needed to transport children that would be able to walk. And it made the way he, we could visualize the whole thing. The van would pull up right up until that 100 foot mark from where that structure is. And even if the kids couldn't walk and get out of it, they could see everything. And it brings them really close to what we were all going to be doing. What other kids would be able to see and participate in. So he did such a great job. Didn't you think he did a great job?
He did a great job, and I think the biggest point that he was able to do was to counter a strong effort on their part to move that spot further back.
Mhm.
So there was I think part of what they're trying to do here is they're trying to say we would like it to be a little bit more of a gradual drop down into that valley of where the river's gonna be. And they kept talking about, can we move it back, can we move it back? And he kept really talking about the further, and I did as well, the further back you move that, the more inaccessible it becomes to our special needs students and that have mobility
they got
issues. And I think by the end of it, they had a clear picture as to why that's where it really needs to be.
And that it would still be wetlands, because we talked about the beaver.
They added that whole thing about turtles, which
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
we thought
great.
of.
So we had somebody from the fishing game there, and he was interesting, and he wanted to know about the nesting sites for the turtles. And many of you all know that they like the sandy soil. They like to lay their eggs in the sandy soil, and this is like a lot of sandy material that we're going to be removing and moving over. So we talked about like, would we create a spot where we could have a nesting spot for turtles? Yes.
Well, I was
this
very
would be-
excited about that.
This would be really great that we could have, like, the kids can watch this and see the different turtles hatch. So, they did then go into, they asked a lot of questions. I thought the engineers did great.
Yeah.
Did great. We were able to really engage them in a good conversation. And so the process is November 7th, we'll know if we are being considered, okay? Like if we're gonna be like the finalists. Then they take it to a committee, and that is on November 13th. What did they say the committee was called? The executive committee?
Yeah.
The executive committee. It's a position that I know it's always up for election. Something executive council?
Yeah.
Executive council. They take it to them because the ARM all they do is recommend. They can't make any decisions. So they will go and present all of their information. They'll have everything from our engineers, all the information that they need, and they will present they're on the agenda for November 13th. It's a public meeting, anybody can go, because they said, well, would it be helpful if we had Bearpaw go to speak for us? They said, no, because we have their letter. Everything is gonna be presented to them. They said that normally, whoever they recommend, the executive council approves. So that's November 13th. They said about 7 weeks later, they process, go through all the information. About 7 weeks later, they believe we'll have an answer. So probably by our budget hearing, we'll probably have an answer. We didn't ask how much money they were gonna give us, but
Well, I just indicated that it'd be lovely to get, 300,000-400,000 a couple of times, so.
yeah, so it was, but I will say, they all said, this is a very competitive project. They love our project.
Yeah.
They love our project.
And then I pushed them a little bit further. So by the budget hearing, we'd be able to give some sense of yes and value, but there still won't be a done deal. You then have to go through quite a bit more permitting processes and everything else. I did push them. I said, would we have an answer by our annual meeting? And she says, if we're aggressive about it, we might. So the hope would be that by the annual meeting, we could stand up and say, hey, we have $350,000, $400,000, $500,000. Well, it won't be that much. They only have 400 to give. So $400,000 coming to us from the ARM grant. We're in the final processes, but it's a lock. We have it, and we're going to move forward with moving our dam.
And
We'd be able to give that confidence.
And we did talk about that we will go as far as we can with the money they award us, right? So let's just pretend they only give us $200,000. Well, we know this project is without it was like 467
Before the continuing stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's
So it's
under
like
500,000.
Yeah, so we said, well, we will go until we use that money, and then we're gonna reapply. And what we were told is that they would, obviously, once they invest in a project, they want to see it through. So then we would hopefully be contenders for the next term. Also, I don't know if I should have, I don't know if I talked about this at our last meeting, under correspondence or not, or if it happened after our last meeting. Did I talk about state rep calling me? Okay, all right. So Mike Harrington called me, and it may have been like the day after our meeting. I'm not sure, but they said, he did tell me that they were going to be working on a dam committee there, where they're looking to see what kind of funds they can fund towns like us. And, we're a district, but other towns, because these dams are all over the state. We're like not alone having a problem where these dams were all created like in the 70s, because there was grant money to do this, and they had the issues with the beavers. We didn't have any beavers, and so there's all this grant money to build all these dams. That's why we have the dam we have was built with money from a grant. So he said this committee has formed. They're looking to create legislation to fund these or to come up with some kind of money. And so we said, what can I do? And I said, get us money, And so he is part of that committee. So hopefully we can, that the state, that takes by next year, but even if they kick in, if something happens, then maybe we can then get some additional state funding from that. So.
Did you want to link back to the budget?
Oh, okay, so anyway, when I saw that Rob put the $60,000 into the dam, I said, we've already put money into the dam. We know that we're going to hopefully get this money, and we'll have a good idea. And before our budget hearing, I think we'll know what's going on. So, we can decide, do we even want to keep that much money in here if we're going to be getting grant money? And we can do this in steps, getting money each year. So it's just something to think about. We don't have to make any decisions now. Obviously, we'll know November 7th, we'll know if we are the ones that are going to get the grant. If we're not, then we have to go back to square one. And then November 13th, like I said, it's going to be presented to the executive council. So it's just something else to think about. We don't have to make a decision now because we don't know if we're getting money, how much money we're getting. But
So for now, we have to keep that money in the budget because wasn't that 65 based on our grant application?
We had put like a
That was
contingent.
last year. I thought that was last year.
We've already paid the amount that we put into the grant, we've already paid our part.
All of it?
I'm pretty sure that was the
Oh,
deal, because
last
he
year
put
we
a
had-
lot of
we
it
had
in the
talked-
future contingent.
It was
Yeah, we had
last
talked
year.
about but we had talked about putting in like a,
Possible. You said
huge-
possible. So
right.
it's so clear on possible.
right, it was a contingent, I just didn't know, and it was contingent because it was based on whether or not it passed in the budget, but I don't know if we ended up needing that, or if we ended up
They were
having
also-
enough dollars without it that they left it off. I'd
They
have to
were
go back and look.
also able to include the pre-ARM application monies that we spent. So between the two, it was actually quite a bit. And then it was the future monies that they talked about that we would also say will contribute to down the road.
Contingent.
Yeah.
But I
So-
think we'd have to find out what the timeline of the additional design funding would be as well.
Yes.
Right?
So this is, it's
They're
all
not
stuff we
completely-
don't know yet.
Yeah, I'm just
So,
saying if we leave money in the budget, we should cover whatever that
yeah,
additional.
you're right,
proposal is.
you're right.
But the grant money and the budget money should become available during the summer. So I'm not sure that that part gains us in the grant. If we get nothing or very little, having $60,000, I'm not sure what that will do to move the project along. I mean, I think we're all hopeful we're gonna be looking at 250, 300, 350, you know,
Yeah.
because then that's a real number that the engineers can get moving on. And we, like you said, we can apply again. We also know that American Rivers, and I can't remember what the other one was, are all talking that, you know, they might find us additional monies. And so,
So we don't really have to, just for Kyle, we don't have to have a final decision about our budget until our budget hearing that night. And then we get the feedback from the people, and then we sign our warrant articles, pay the warrant articles. Is it 45 days before our hearing?
I'll get to the timeline, I just don't have
Yeah,
it in front of me.
45 days, I think, before our district meeting. So we can still
It's not
just
that
wait
long.
to get, is it 30?
It's gotta be, because we wouldn't make it to
All right, so then
45.
it's 30. So we just have to, it's something to think about and to know, like, if we get, like, oh, gosh, there's more things we didn't put in the budget that we just realized we should put in, or that the Co-Brown is a lot more than we anticipated, or whatever. Stuff to think about. Anyway, all right. All right, so we have the next meeting, we're gonna be at Co-Brown, it's November 13th. And Kyle, you know where you're going this time, right? Yes. We'll have snacks. So you can- All right, and then November 20th, we're gonna do that public hearing first for that money. And then December 11th, we don't have the second meeting in December, which is good. When's our budget hearing? Yeah, January 23rd, 29th, okay. Yeah, we're good. I think it looks good. The annual meeting is May 8th. Or March 8th, I'm sorry. Okay, all right, anything else? Oh, other.
Yeah, I have others. You ready? All right. The first other is, I just wanted to let you know, and I'm very excited about this, and I'm hoping that we can build off of this. We have a person who is an intern in a college program that has come to work with Jay. His name is Lucas Henry. I just didn't remember it. I haven't met him yet. He's doing all the stuff that you would do to be a volunteer in the district, so the background checks, the whole 9 yards, but he is also here to learn from Jay, but he's also an amazing resource. So we've already talked about as a leadership team, how we want to make sure we get a lot of different professional development opportunities in for our staff, that we get ahead on some of the workload that needs to be done, et cetera. He's working 3 days a week, X number of hours a day, I don't remember what it is. And once again, it is free. So smile. I love that. And I would love, and we just talked about in leadership the other day, I said, I would love to see if there's a way we can maybe work with some of the local universities to kind of advertise our name for some interns. I used to have, 1 year, I had 14 in 1 year at my last district. And it was wonderful. Well, it's a mixed bag, right? I mean, you get some amazing interns, you get some horrible ones, and you get a lot in the middle. But once again, it's just an amazing experience for everybody involved. The students get to have a very young person that's involved, especially if they don't have that as a regular teacher. The person gets a lot of, learning through that process, and we just gain a lot of free resources. So anyway, I just wanted to share with you that we have an intern, and we're very excited about it.
Great.
Next, I received a facility use request from Strafford Recreational Sports. The dates they want is November 3rd, which is before our next meeting. So it didn't come to me until just the other day, but I couldn't get it into the packet. They'll be doing this on Sundays at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And it's adult indoor soccer. And I think, I remember this from last year, so I don't think there's anything special about it.
This
Yeah,
year was on Wednesday.
it was on Wednesdays, okay. And don't forget, as part of the motion, if you wish to make the motion, to say that it is deferring the cost because they're, whatever.
Anybody would like to make that motion?
I move we approve the facilities use request as presented by Strafford Recreational Sports for adult indoor soccer from November 3rd to April 27th on Sundays from 4 to 6 p.m., noting that we are waiving any fees associated with this.
Okay, do we have a second?
That was second.
Discussion? Okay, Eric?
Yes.
Jess?
Yes.
Katrina?
Yes.
Kyle?
Yes.
And Debbie, yes. Okay.
And just to toot Greg's and my own horn, our tax rate has been approved. I'm not saying you like your tax rate, but I'm saying the tax rate has been approved. Recall in year one, that I arrived in October 31st of my first year, it hadn't even been begun. And here it is on 10/16, it's approved by the DRA. So
Okay, so
Thank
does
you,
that
Rob.
mean that we know what the fund balance, what we're returning to the town?
yeah, that was part of the DOE 25 and MS 25. I don't have it in front.
Okay, but you said when we talked about that, you said there were still some late invoices, so it may be less.
I think what he finally was
That was
finalized with
right.
them, I believe.
Was it 237,000?
Don't remember.
But let me verify with Greg, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I will
That was
verify with Greg.
37. So for some reason I don't have that form anymore, the tax rate form.
Oh, you want it? Yeah, of course you can.
Yes. Okay, what was it? What's the comparison from last year? Anybody know?
Don't.
People gonna be hit with an increase or what? Same thing? Have last year's?
I haven't gotten to that part of the budget process yet, but
Yeah.
Has this already been,
it's.
Put
it's-
out
Yeah,
to-
this is public, it's in the town's hands.
okay,
Greg printed it off for me because I still can't get it to the PRA site.
So I think it would be good if we, maybe that, we could look at our old, in the, our handbook from March to
Packet.
see what the tax rate was, just for a comparison. Yeah,
I'll get on that eventually, I just haven't gotten to the
and
rest of the package.
if you do mention this and you're thinking about what you're gonna write
yeah,
calendar, then you should probably also mention what the fund balance was, what we're returning, so that they know that they are getting
Yeah.
some offset. It would be even higher if we weren't returning. I thought it was 237.
You know, so you don't
But I
have to
may
worry
be
about
wrong.
it.
I thought it was, because it's sort of low for us.
I know that one of the problems was the food service, but that ended up getting applied to this year's first two bills.
Okay.
Because the refund didn't come in until September, which was too late.
Yeah,
So that-
so 2023 was 1864,
Okay.
and 2022 was 1713.
What's this one?
1976. What was it again, Katrina?
2023 was 1864. The school portion in 2023 was 1134, and the school portion this time is 1205.
Okay.
That's not too bad. I mean,
Okay.
I know it stinks, I pay taxes too, I get it, but
No, well, I think at least,
it's not
I
a dollar.
think mentioning the fund balance is good.
yeah. So one of us will email you for some detailed questions to get for that.
I'll have to pull the DOE 25, I can tell you what the fund balance was. Or the MS 25.
All right, do we have anything else?
Those were my three
Anybody else
updates.
have other? No? Okay, we have a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Public comments? Proponents? Nobody else is here. Okay. Okay, no, we can have it, sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second? Okay, and Eric?
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Katrina, Kyle, and Jess. We're all good.
Oh my gosh.
We're working hard on that. I'm really.
Ready to lose it.
Hold on.
Oh, I got the entire weekend
Oh,
over.
no, are they
there.
the
This is good. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, my weekend was shot. My wife made me go hike up a hill with her on Saturday,
hill?
and it was a gorgeous day.
hike up a hill?
She said
Wait,
that'll help.
is that